all the porn on my computer that's on there right now. I don't know why it doesn't do that.
No,
Is it just showing Ian's porn?
No, Ian doesn't have any porn on this computer.
This is.
Wait, is there Ian porn? Is there Ian porn?
That's what I was referring to. Like Ian's porn is
Ian's porn is like Ian in
porn.
porn.
Right.
Okay.
Ian actually.
You don't yet.
You absolutely.
You tried though. You tried through our account.
I did try.
You tried through our account.
I did try.
You tried, baby.
They wouldn't
Cecil,
let me in.
we need to make an OnlyFans for Ian, of Ian, surreptitiously.
Who wants that? Nobody wants this.
It's
We'll
literally
put-
just a bunch of box fans with his glasses on.
It'll just, he'll just be like in his fucking Dexter's laboratory or whatever he's got, making 3D printed fleshlights or whatever he does with his time.
3D print. No, yeah, because they're boxes.
They're boxes. That's what he said. He's making boxes.
Said he's making boxes. He's making boxes. Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. Wait, were we just live? Like our faces?
Yeah, your face is.
Oh man, the whole time I'm picking my nose.
I was rubbing gunkies out of my eye.
This is great. This is
breaking
great.
the fucking. Oh, look at that.
Nice.
Look at that.
Beep, beep.
Nice. Beep beep.
I picture him like Maggie Simpson in the car, like at the opening scene.
Where he's just driving.
Just
mimicking,
mimicking,
mimicking
Marge.
Dad. Yeah, it's perfect. Or mom, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember who's driving. I didn't watch The Simpsons very much.
Oh, I fucking loved the Simpsons so much.
The early Simpsons. Okay, so not early.
Yeah.
The maybe season
3rd
4
through
or something
7 or 8
is just it was brilliant.
perfect.
And then they were on syndication on TV, and they would come on, and I stopped paying attention to them, like maybe in the 90s sometime.
Yeah, I don't remember when I stopped watching them religiously, but I watched The Simpsons religiously probably until 2000.
Yeah.
And then after that, it just
Fell
they're
off.
fucking still on.
Yeah, I know, man. It's still going.
That show's
Still
like
going. I wouldn't know what's happening. I bet it's still going.
I don't know that.
going.
I think it's episodic enough that it would be.
It would be easy
just
enough
fine.
to do. I gotta close this down because I've got to open chat up.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I used to fucking love The Simpsons.
How's things going tonight, guys? We're doing a little stream tonight to talk about the last hearing, that surprise hearing. We weren't going to do anything. Actually, to be honest, we were actually planning to not do anything this week at all. We were going to cancel the stream this week because tomorrow night
we're doing our fundraiser.
We're going to do an abortion access fundraiser tomorrow night with Knowledge Fight opening arguments and Scathing Atheist. And so we figured we would just cancel tonight, and then we would just, instead we'd be like, yeah, we'll cancel tonight. We'll be on tomorrow. Hey, everybody, you were going to show up tonight, but instead go to tomorrow. But
the day we were all talking, we were putting this fundraiser together. We're texting back and forth, like making plans for the week. And it's like, oh man, emergency surprise fucking hearing. And then it's like, well, is it going to be that big a deal? And then it sounds like it was a big fucking deal.
It's a huge big deal.
I haven't seen it yet. I've only read news stories about it.
So it's a huge big deal.
We got to do it.
I actually only cut very little of this. I cut the procedural stuff where they swear people in and, a little bit here and there. I cut like the opening statement that sort of recaps some stuff. It's still an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half long. So it's going to be a long
And is it just the one person that they interview
It's
the
just
whole
one
time?
person the whole time. And they go back.
Man.
They do cut out to people who they've interviewed before, so they could make a point. Tom, before we start, we got to open this whiskey.
We got a whiskey. So this was, I think I talked about this last time. This is gift whiskey.
So if somebody gave this to him, it's okay. Tom still likes you. He just doesn't like your whiskey.
I do. So I just want to know your thoughts.
Okay, so this is a Texas whiskey?
It is unclear, which is part of...
It says TX on it. Hold it up to this camera. Hold it up to the camera.
Let me make sure I don't give away...
TX.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it says TX blended whiskey.
So I'm thinking that's a Texas whiskey.
And I don't know what that means.
Texas.
Thank you.
Everything is this. Everything's disgusting in Texas.
Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll be like, this is good. In which case I'll be like, hey man, you've got a bottle of whiskey.
Maybe.
Hang on.
Is it even a mixer, Tom?
I did make an old fashioned with it. I would not
do that again.
It was drinkable, but there's better.
It smells like rubbing alcohol. Doesn't smell good. It smells real bad, actually. It smells real bad. Okay. It smells very strong.
Yeah.
What's the proof on this?
I don't know, 9,000 or something. I don't know.
It smells
I don't
really
have my glasses,
strong.
so
All right.
I literally can't
All right,
ever
here
know.
we go.
Here we go, buddy.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's got banana in there. There's some banana going on in there.
If whiskey could turn, I feel like this is what
I don't hate it.
Oh God.
Did I just win a bottle of whiskey?
You got yourself a bottle of booze, my good man. It's just got
it's really sweet.
It's very sweet.
It's really sweet.
And you're right, it has a banana ester to it.
There's a banana flavor in there. It's very sweet. Very sweet.
It's just
I'll bet you whatever this is in like a Coke. I bet you that'd be good.
It might be good in a vanilla Coke. Because vanilla Coke's even extra sweet. Oh gosh.
You really don't like this.
I really don't. It's got I don't like that banana flavor to it.
This isn't bad. I don't dislike this. Yeah.
No, it's funny because I was excited. It's like, oh yeah, it's a really nice gift. And I opened it up and I drank it and I was just like shocked. And I immediately was like, I've got to bring this to studio.
It's super sweet. It's super sweet. I don't think a lot of people would like this.
Because it's so sweet.
It almost tastes like you're drinking Malibu or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it tastes like you're drinking.
Yes. The thing is, like,
it's got like this sort of like
it's a little
Panama Jack flavor to
it.
You know?
But no, you're right. It has those banana esters in there, and I find that fucking weird.
I will say, 2 or 3 drinks in, it's smooth as fuck now. It's oiled the gears and it is smooth as shit.
Let me entirely retrace my steps, Cecil, because I love you. I brought you a gift.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
And
That's
I think
so
you'll really like it. You're really gonna like it. Here you go, buddy.
Appreciate that. That's great. I'm gonna try it on Coke now.
You're gonna like it.
I'm gonna get vanilla Coke specifically to try it.
I bet that would be.
I'll get vanilla Cokes this week.
Okay,
and then we'll try it on the stream next week.
Now I'm gonna have something different.
I'm gonna drink more of this.
Yeah, good. I'm absolutely. I got to tell you, I am in love with the larceny that we doctored up.
That's good
I'm in
stuff.
love with this. This is what I got to put on camera. This is so good. It's ridiculous.
All right. Before we get started, let's put the camera on me here real quick.
Are people saying it's not in sync, Ian? Are there comments on here about it not being in sync? Guys, somebody says, are their voices out of sync?
Hold on, I'm going to clap. Tell me if my clap sounds. You tell me if it's out of sync. All right. Okay, so here I want to talk to people really quick. If you're showing up after the fact, because I know people don't stay here for this and they wouldn't come to the stream for this. If you're showing up after the fact and you're watching this and you're like, hey, I really want to watch the testimony. I really want to watch what's happening. And you get upset that we're talking during it or we make a joke, you don't need to watch this here. You can watch this somewhere else. You can watch this in its entirety at the January 6th Commission site. You can watch it in its entirety. We're not even there. They won't let us in to the January 6th thing to talk about it while it's playing. The only place you can see the commentary that we're going to do is here, and that's okay if you don't watch it here. Perfectly fine. But don't come here and tell me that you want us to be quiet, because that's not going to happen. I'm not going to hang out with Tom for an hour and a half and not make a joke.
Silently
and not
watching TV together?
It's literally not going to happen. So if you came to the wrong place, thank you for showing up. Hit an upvote while you're here, and then just, go watch it at the January 6th thing. No hard feelings. Nobody's hurt. But don't leave me a comment to tell me to change what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to do that. Okay, on with the show.
Okay, this question must be facetious. It's from Brian. Tom, should I try those curls in my bottle of Blanton's? No, you should drink your bottle of Blanton's unadulterated.
Yeah, don't.
And with great love and affection.
I can't be sure that it would do anything that would be so, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't think it'll ruin it, but like Blanton's is hard to get. So like leave it. It's hard to get and it's delicious, so just leave it be. Yeah.
So we're going to watch this. I cut a little bit of this out. It's not much, but I cut a little out. So here we go. January 6th stuff coming on.
Let's watch it.
Let's watch this shit. Ian, did you turn off Super Chat?
No.
Up until now, our hearings have each.
We're turning off Super Chat tonight, too.
I told you to turn it off for tonight and tomorrow, but you can turn it off tomorrow. It's fine. If you want to just turn it off tomorrow, it's fine. But you got to make sure it's off tomorrow. Please make sure it's off.
We don't want any accidental.
Please make sure it's off
Super
tomorrow.
Chats.
You might not be able to do it now, but please make sure it's off tomorrow, because I don't want people to Super Chat tomorrow thinking they're donating to that and they're not donating it. They're basically getting 30% taken by Google, and we don't want that to happen. So please make sure that Super Chat is off tomorrow. All right, we did a little show stuff on the air. Sorry about that, guys. All right, here we go.
Real quick, Liz Cheney looks just like my friend Tiffany's mother.
I could see that. I know Tiffany, so I could see that.
Like I used to buy suits and shirts from my friend Tiffany's mom. It's like this is the lady who sold me a suit. She's on the House Select Committee, and it's weird.
Now she's selling a lawsuit. Okay, Here we go. All right, so this is the start. I cut out the very initial part because it was just a recap of what happened.
Up until now, our hearings have each been organized to address specific elements of President Trump's plan to overturn the 2020 election. Today, we are departing somewhat from that model because Ms. Hutchinson's testimony touches on several important and cross-cutting topics that are relevant to each of our future hearings.
All right. So what's the volume like, Ian? Is it loud? Too loud?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I'm gonna.
I think I shut off super chats. Everybody just tell me if it's gone. But don't send one.
How would they
Lisa will be mad.
know
It'll
that?
people who know. You know?
No,
know.
what? Huh?
I know.
Okay.
All right.
You know?
Okay. Thank you, Ian.
Thanks for one wheeling
In her
away
role,
over.
working for the White House Chief of Staff, Ms. Hutchinson handled a vast number of sensitive issues.
I'm talking
She
over
worked
it.
in the West Wing, several steps down the
doing it now?
hall from the Oval Office.
Several steps.
Ms. Hutchinson spoke daily with members of Congress.
Could you imagine being several steps away from Trump all the time? Wouldn't that be so terrible? My life. What have you done with your life to be several steps from Trump all the time?
If you're several steps away from Trump and not attacking him like a vicious animal, like what,
Beating him to death with a hamburger.
how do you
with high-ranking officials in the administration,
splashing your call vicious
senior
on
White
him?
House staff, including Mr. Meadows, with White House counsel, lawyers, and with Mr. Tony Ornato, who served as the White House Deputy Chief of Staff.
Kind of a
Can
big
we
deal,
stop
okay?
really quick? The chief of staff is the only position that's appointed that doesn't get congressional approval, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
it's someone on the cabinet who doesn't need
Congressional
approval. So that's number one. But number two, it's a really fucking important position. Chief of staff has the ear of the president all the time. All the time. They said that I read something that said that there wasn't a lot of chief of staff leading up to before like Nixon, but like since Nixon, everybody's had one.
Okay.
So it's not necessary. They don't have to fill it. It's not a position that has to be filled because it's not necessarily necessary.
right.
But everybody's had one, and they're ultra important and very influential to the president. I just want to put that out there because I don't think they say that in this.
Can we nominate Sarah as our chief of
Yes,
staff?
Sarah's already been our chief of staff. Absolutely. Yeah.
Sarah, your chief of staff.
Sarah, your chief of staff.
I don't know if you're in the chat.
Yeah, if you're in the chat, your chief of staff.
that means she's Ian's boss.
What is Ian though? Gaffer. Okay, all right. We figured it out.
Undersecretary of
We figured
the
it out.
Exterior.
We figured it out.
I can't even be best boy.
Craft services.
Craft services.
No.
She also worked
After I
on
got
a
you that
daily
Peruvian.
basis with members of the Secret Service.
I wouldn't want
who
it.
were
It'd all be
posted in the
fucking
White House.
vegetarian.
In short,
The
Ms.
cucumber
Hutchinson was in a position to know a
smashes or
great
whatever he
deal
eats.
about the happenings in the Trump White House.
cucumber smashes.
Our witness today is Ms. Cassie Hutchinson, who served in the Trump administration in the White House Office of Legislative Affairs from 2019 to 2020, and as a special assistant to the president in the White House Chief of Staff's office.
And her next job will
from
be
March
waitress at
2020
Sonic.
through January 2021.
No.
Ms. Hutchinson,
She's going
I'd like
places
to
after
start
this.
with a few questions about your background. These are some photographs we've obtained highlighting your career.
This is awesome.
These show you with members of Congress, including Steve Scalise, as well as the White House with leader Kevin McCarthy and Jim Jordan.
What a
Others show
fucking
you with
patriarchal
the
photo
president
that is.
and members
know,
of
right?
Congress
Holy
aboard
shit.
Air Force One.
Bitches on the
Before
couch.
you worked in the White House, you worked on Capitol Hill for Representative Steve Scalise, the Republican whip, and Senator Ted Cruz.
The Republican
And
nene.
then in 2019, you moved to the White House and served there until the end
That's
of the
what
Trump
Ian is.
administration.
Ian is the
2020.
house nene.
When you started at the White House, you
I
served
didn't even say that.
in the Office of Legislative Affairs. We understand that you were initially hired as a staff assistant, but were soon promoted to a position of greater responsibility. Can you explain your role for the committee?
When I moved over to the White House Chief of Staff's office with Mr. Meadows when he became the fourth Chief of Staff,
Fourth.
Jesus.
it's difficult to describe a typical day. I was a special assistant to the president and an advisor to the Chief of Staff. The days depended on what the president was doing that day, and that's kind of how my portfolio was reflected. I had a lot of outreach with members of Congress, senior cabinet officials, I would work on policy issues with relevant internal components and members on the Hill, as well as security protocol at the White House complex for Mr. Meadows and the President.
And then you received another promotion in March 2020. At that time, you became the principal aide to the new White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
What did a typical day look like for you in your work with Mr. Meadows?
It varied with what was going on. We spent a lot of time on the Hill. I spent time on the Hill independently too, as I was his liaison for Capitol Hill. We did a lot of presidential travel engagements, but mostly I was there to serve what the Chief of Staff needed, and a lot of times what the Chief of Staff needed was a reflection of what the President's schedule is detailed to do that day.
I still don't know what she does.
So is
all
it
day.
fair to say that you spoke regularly
stuff,
in your
talks to
position, both with members of Congress and with senior members of the Trump administration?
That's correct. That's a fair assessment, sir.
She sounds like the doer on the staff.
Right.
She sounds like the person you turn to and be like, I need to talk to these 7 people.
Go make that happen.
Go make that happen.
Yeah.
And then they come and then they do it. Like, I feel like she's like
That's
the
probably
doer.
good. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
Like, she's
probably
the person
yeah.
who just facilitates stuff. That's
Right.
what it sounds like to me anyway.
Yeah. No, that's probably a good description. It's just like she was like, I'm at the Hill a lot, and I do
Yeah.
and I'm just like, well, that's where you're at.
Yeah. I think if she feels like the person you would turn to be like, I need this done. Can you do
Right.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you say that in your work with Mr. Meadows, you are typically in contact with him and others in the White House throughout the day?
That's correct, sir. Mr. Meadows and I were in contact almost pretty much throughout every day, consistently.
Although so much of grave importance happens in the West Wing of the White House, it's quite a small building. Above me on the screen, you can see a map of
We
the
paid
first floor
After Effects people.
of the West Wing of the White House. On the right, you can see the president's Oval Office.
Okay, Ian, next week, I want one of these, but for Gloria Hole Studios.
Yeah, we need an exploded view.
We need an exploded view of Gloria Hole
everything.
Studios. Okay?
It's one room.
Explode it.
Exploded the view, though.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
On the left, the Chief of Staff's
Get a lot of
office
pushback.
suite.
God, I know.
He's getting fucking
Within the
mouthy.
Chief of Staff,
Sarah, as Chief of Staff, can
Sarah.
you put Ian in his place,
Yeah.
please?
No, I'm sorry. Sarah, I'm sorry.
She
She sends like 7 super chats. Pays Google 30%.
office suite is the heart of the
Look at
West
how close
Wing,
that is.
was your
Jesus.
desk,
Wow, the vice
which
president has
was
to get
between
really
the
far
Vice
away.
President's office, Ms. Kirshner's office.
Okay,
Wait,
let's look at this.
Was
really
her
quick.
office
Okay, so hold on a
just
second.
in the hallway?
I guess it's like there's like a reception area out there in between the two. But the vice president has to sit really far away. Look at how far away he is.
Yeah, like there's like a Roosevelt room and a lobby.
Why can't the vice president take the Roosevelt room?
Wait a minute. What is lobby, and then what's underneath that? An ornado? And then a Nix?
Or a NATO.
Oh, those are people.
Or a NATO is.
Those must be people.
That's got to be a human.
Holy
Hicks.
shit.
Hicks. Hope Hicks.
Hope Hicks. Are you saying
Kushner
what
had
I'm
a
looking?
fucking-
Can you
Kushner had
imagine
a-
being that
he had a
close to
closer-
Kushner?
He had a closer office than Meadows did.
He had a closer office than anyone but the dining room. The dining room.
Dining room a little closer though.
I can't imagine a job.
Admittedly though, if I would actually change, I would flip the study in the dining room. If I was there, I would flip.
I
that
would just
shit.
put the dining room in my Oval Office.
In fact, I would just move my desk to the butler pantry above the dining room.
And the Oval Office. Ms. Hutchinson, is this an accurate depiction
Press
of
secretary's
where you
up
were
top
located?
there,
yeah.
It's accurate.
and they didn't put a name on it because it changed every week.
Yeah,
Every 4 weeks
Fuck.
there was a new one.
I mean, that guy ran through fucking employees.
I know.
Holy
I know.
shit.
That's why they were like, "This is the 4th chief of staff."
Fourth chief
he had
of staff.
one every year.
He was only fucking president for 4
Yeah, he's
years.
like, I had one every year.
He had like
Lot-
4 fucking attorney generals in the last 2 hours.
Smaller than it looks.
Absolutely.
That's what she's
Ms.
literally
Hutchinson,
said.
this is
No,
a
that's not what she
photo that shows the short distance between your office and the president's Oval Office. And it only takes 5 to 10 seconds or so to walk down the hall from your office to the Oval Office. Is that right?
I prefer a chair
correct.
over Jared Kushner, to be honest with you.
I would prefer
Thank
a
you.
lobotomy over Jared
Mr.
Kushner.
Chairman, we will begin today with an
All right, so excruciating detail there to talk about how close, but I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to just show her as being
She has a woman of
close.
access.
She's close to the
Yeah.
president, man. That's just how it works. She's
Yeah.
just close to the president. And I think that they did a good job with this because immediately what came out afterwards, the Republican push is, I don't know who she is. And if you
Right.
saw Trump basically saying, I don't know who she is, she's some lady, some fucking broad, who knows?
Right.
Who knows? She's some broad. I was going to take her down there. Who knows? But instead,
I thought she was the house prostitute.
yeah, instead, everybody fucking showed throughout this excruciating detail to show how close she was to the president,
Right.
showing him in the same room. He's still, and the thing is like, he will just literally lie and say, oh, and look at how she's lying about me. How could someone get away with this stuff is what he essentially said today.
Like it's funny because as we were watching, I was like, what is the point? And then I was like, oh, the point is because they need to lay claim to credibility.
Yeah, right.
And she's going to say, I saw and heard this stuff. And we have to understand there's not a lot of people on that same floor.
No, man, that's a small floor.
right.
That's a small floor.
That's a tight knit group
Yeah.
of people. If you have access, if that's where you work every day,
and your office is in the open in between those three people that can hear essentially things happening.
man, have you ever worked in a small office where
Yeah,
there's like
for sure.
7? You know everything,
that's happening. You can constantly hear shit in the hall.
Right.
Yeah.
You know who's
Jane.
fucking the coffee machine.
Every time. Call forward to Monday's show.
that first provided Ms. Hutchinson a tangible sense of the ongoing planning for the events of January 6th. On January 2nd, 4 days before the attack on our Capitol, President Trump's lead lawyer, Mr. Giuliani, was meeting with White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and others. Ms. Hutchinson, do you remember Mr. Giuliani meeting with Mr. Meadows on January 2nd, 2021?
I do. He met with Mr. Meadows in the evening of January 2nd, 2021.
And we understand that you walked Mr. Giuliani out of the White House that night, and he talked to you about January 6th. What
It's
do you
nice for
remember
him to
him
walk him to
saying?
his car, keep him safe.
know, right?
As Mr. Giuliani
Otherwise, somebody
and I
could
were
slap him on
walking
the
to his
back and almost
vehicles
kill
that
him.
evening, he looked at me and said something to the effect of, Cass, are you excited for the 6th? It's going to be a great day. I remember looking at him and saying, Rudy, could you explain what's happening on the 6th? He had responded something to the effect of, we're going to the Capitol. It's going to be great. The president's going to be there. He's going to look powerful. He's going to be with the members. He's going to be with the senators. Talk to the chief about it. Talk to the chief about it. He knows about it.
And did you go back then up to the West Wing and tell Mr. Meadows about your conversation with Mr. Giuliani?
I did. After Mr. Giuliani had left the campus that evening, I went back up to our office and I found Mr. Meadows in his office on the couch. He was scrolling through his phone. I remember leaning against the doorway and saying, I just had an interesting conversation with Rudy, Mark. Sounds like we're going to go to the Capitol. He didn't look up from his phone and said something to the effect of, there's a lot going on, Cass, but I don't know. Things might get real bad on January 6th.
Glad you could look up of your phone to tell me that.
Ms. Hutchinson, Mr.
Yeah,
Meadows
right.
is engaged in litigation with the committee to try to avoid testifying here. What was your reaction when he said to you things might get real bad?
In the days before January 2nd, I was apprehensive about the 6th. I had heard general plans for a rally. I had heard tentative movements to potentially go to the Capitol. But when hearing Rudy's take on January 6th and then Mark's response, that evening was the first moment that I remember feeling scared and nervous for what could happen on January 6th.
Because they were fucking planning it all
And
along.
I had
When
a
you say
deeper
that.
concern for what was happening with the planning aspects of it.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Today, we're going to be focusing primarily on the events of January 5th and 6th at the White House. But to begin and to frame the discussion, I want to talk about a conversation that you had with Mr. John Ratcliffe, the Director of National Intelligence. And you had this conversation in December of 2020. Mr. Ratcliffe was nominated by President Trump to oversee U.S. intelligence, our U.S. intelligence community. And before his appointment, Mr. Ratcliffe was a Republican member of Congress. As you will see on this clip, Director Ratcliffe's comments in December of 2020 were prescient.
My understanding was Director Ratcliffe didn't want much to do with the post-election period. Director Ratcliffe felt that it wasn't something that the White House should be pursuing. It felt it was dangerous for the president's legacy.
Yeah, it's so good up until then.
Yeah.
Had expressed to me that he was concerned that it could spiral out of control.
Oh, wow.
And potentially be dangerous, either for our democracy or the way that things were going for the 6th.
When you say it wasn't something the White House should be pursuing, what's the it?
Trying to fight the results of the election, finding missing ballots, pressuring.
There weren't missing ballots.
Yeah. Creating ballots.
Yeah.
Filing lawsuits in certain states where there didn't seem to be significant evidence, and reaching out to state legislatures about that. So pretty
Pressuring the
much
Secretary of
the
State
way
to
that the
lie.
White House is handling the post-election period. He felt that there could be dangerous repercussions
Huh.
in terms of precedent set for elections,
Yeah.
for our democracy,
Sure.
for the 6th. He
Yep.
was hoping that we would concede.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
So,
because
Ms.
when you
Hutchinson,
lose-
now
Yeah.
we're going to turn to certain information that was available before January 4th and what the Trump administration and the president knew about the potential for violence before January 6th. On the screen, you will see an email received by Acting Deputy Attorney General Donahue on January 4th from the National Security Division of the Department of Justice. Mr. Donahue testified in our hearings last week. The email identifies apparent planning by those coming to Washington on January 6th to, quote, occupy federal buildings, and discussions of, quote, invading the Capitol building. Here's what Mr.
Knew it
Donahue
was
said
gonna
to
happen,
us.
man.
Yeah. Security should have been.
We knew
beef.
that if you have tens of thousands of very upset people showing up in Washington, D.C., that there was potential for violence.
The U.S. Secret Service was looking at similar information and watching the planned demonstrations. In fact, their intelligence division sent several emails to White House personnel, like Deputy Chief of Staff Tony Ornato and the head of the President's Protective Detail, Robert Engel, including certain materials listing events like those on the screen. The White House continued to receive updates about planned demonstrations, including information regarding the Proud Boys organizing and planning to attend events on January 6th. Although Ms. Hutchinson has no detailed knowledge of any planning involving the Proud Boys for January 6th, she did note this.
I recall hearing the word Oath Keeper and hearing the word Proud Boys closer to the planning of the January 6th rally when Mr. Giuliani would be around.
Shit.
On January
Shit.
3rd, the Capitol Police issued a special event assessment. In that document, the Capitol Police noted that the Proud Boys and other groups planned to be in Washington, D.C. on January 6th and indicated that, quote, unlike previous post-election protests, the targets of the pro-Trump supporters are not necessarily the counter-protesters as they were previously, but rather Congress itself is the target on the 6th.
Why were you so under-defended? The National
Of
Guard.
course, we all know now that the Proud Boys showed up on January 6th, marched from the Washington Monument to the Capitol that day, and led the riotous mob to invade and occupy our Capitol. Ms. Hutchinson, I want to play you a clip of one of our meetings when you described a call on January 4th that you received from National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien on the same topic, potential violence on January 6th.
I received a call from Robert O'Brien, the National Security Advisor. He had asked if he could speak with Mr. Meadows about potential words of violence that he was hearing that were potentially going to happen on the Hill on January 6th. I had asked if he had connected with Tony Ornato because Tony Ornato had a conversation with him with Mark about that topic, Robert had said, I'll talk to Tony, and then I don't know if Robert ever connected with Mark about the issue.
Ms. Hutchinson,
Good
can
editing
you
there, Ian.
describe
Nice
for
job.
us Mr. Ornato's responsibilities as Deputy Chief of Staff?
The Deputy Chief of Staff position at the White House for operations is arguably one of the most important positions that somebody can hold. They're in charge of all security protocol for the campus and all presidential protectees, primarily the president and the first family, but anything that requires security for any individual that has presidential protection, so the Chief of Staff or the National Security Advisor, as well as the Vice President's team too. Tony would oversee all of that, and he was the conduit for security protocol between White House staff and the United States Secret Service.
Thank you. And you also described a brief meeting between Mr. Ornato and Mr. Meadows on the potential for violence. The meeting was on January 4th. They were talking about the potential for violence on January 6th. Let's listen to a clip of that testimony.
I remember Mr. Ornato had talked to him about intelligence reports. I remember Mr. Ornato coming in and saying that we had intel reports saying that there could potentially be violence on the 6th.
You also told us about reports of violence and weapons that the Secret Service were receiving on the night of January 5th and throughout the day on January 6th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There are reports that police in Washington, D.C. had arrested several people with firearms or ammunition following a separate pro-Trump rally in Freedom Plaza on the evening of January 5th. Are those some of the reports that you recall hearing about?
They are.
Of course, the world now knows that the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th had many different types of weapons. When a president speaks, the Secret Service typically requires those attending to pass through metal detectors, known as magnetometers, or MAGs for short. The Select Committee has learned that people who willingly entered the enclosed area for President Trump's speech were screened so they could attend the rally at the Ellipse. They had weapons and other items that were confiscated: pepper spray, knives, brass knuckles, tasers, body armor, gas masks, batons, blunt weapons. And those were just from the people who chose to go through the security for the president's event.
Jesus,
on the
what?
Ellipse. Not the several thousand members of the crowd
Got all
who
the people who are
refused
like,
to go
"I got
through the
knuckles on me.
mags
Let's see if they take
and
them."
watched from the lawn
Can't
near
believe
the
they took
Washington
my brass
Monument.
knuckles.
The Select Committee
Man.
has learned about reports from outside the magnetometers and has obtained police radio transmissions identifying individuals with firearms, including AR-15s, near the Ellipse on the morning of January 6th. Let's listen.
There's an individual who's in a tree. He's going to be a white male, about 6 feet tall, thin build, brown cowboy boots. He's got blue jeans and a blue jean jacket, and underneath the blue jean jacket, the complainant's both saw stock with
That's
AR-15.
literally everybody there.
He's
Yeah,
gonna be
right?
with a group of individuals, about 5 to 8
Well,
other
10,000 other
individuals.
people.
Two of the
looking
individuals in
identical.
that group at the base of the tree near the porta potties were wearing green fatigues, green olive drab style fatigues, about 5'8", 5'9".
Sounds like he's using Ian's microphone.
White males, brown cowboy boots. They had Glock style pistols in their waistbands.
Jesus Christ.
8736 with the message that subject weapon on his right hip.
Look at these fucking
In the
idiots.
tree.
Jesus.
Motor 1, make sure BPD knows they have an elevated threat in the tree south side of Constitution Avenue. Look for the "Don't Tread on Me" flag,
Look, that's what he's-
American flag face
that's
mask,
what he's doing,
cowboy
though.
boots, weapon on the right side hip.
Like he's really trying. He's being real careful not to tread on it. So he climbed a tree to stay away from it.
I got 3 men walking down the street in fatigue while carrying AR-15. Copy at 14th and Independent.
Why is there just... There was like a Taiwanese
AR-15s at
flag.
14th and Independent.
Was it?
Yeah, like, I think that was the Taiwanese flag. I could... It's possible I'm wrong. Maybe.
Hey, copy at 14th and
What's that flag right there?
Independent.
Korea.
Is that a Korean flag? I'm sorry. Why, Ian?
Unless it's a, I don't know. Probably they're pro North Korea. Who
Chat,
knows?
chat. What kind of flag
What
is
the
that? Let us know. We'll look in chat. Hold on. Let me call
Korean.
chat up.
Well, it's Korean. The only reason because it's like a karate, Like they hang it at like.
Oh, you do karate, Ian?
Ian,
do you do karate?
Do you do karate?
Wait, Ian, tell us about your karate.
No, no. I was in the yellow pages. No big deal.
You do.
Do we have any super chats to read?
Yeah, it's South Korean.
Okay. Sorry, I was fairly sure.
Do we have any super chats to read, Ian?
No, we don't because they're not working.
Amazing.
I mean, I shut them off.
Amazing. Thank you.
Excellent.
Sorry, I meant karate.
Karate. Got to say "tay" at the end.
Man,
very
I can't
important.
believe they would let him in.
South Korean. A South Korean.
Why the
flag.
fuck would there be a South Korean flag?
I don't know.
I don't know.
These guys don't make any fucking. Is there a thing though? Is there like an internet meme thing or something? I don't know.
I'll look it up. South Korean QAnon.
Someone suggests maybe a vet from the Korean War, man. I don't know. That's an old dude.
Yeah, right?
What?
That's an old dude. That's
He's just
like, what is the Korean War in the 50s?
I'm here for America, so I'm flying the flag of South Korea because
You got to be in your 90s if you're a fucking vet of that.
Yeah, I mean that war was fought in the 50s.
50s. You got to be 20.
You'd have to be 18 in the 50s. You'd be born in like what, 32?
That's old.
Like 35 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not a young guy.
You're not a young chicken anymore.
Yeah.
That's an.
I'll tell you what, you're that fucking old. You fly whatever flag you want.
Yeah,
you let your freak flag fly.
Sure.
AR-15s at 14th and Independence. As you saw in those
the America
emails,
the
the first
Supreme
report
Court
that we
wants.
showed, we now know was sent in the 8 o'clock hour on January 6th. This talked about people in the crowd wearing ballistic helmets and body armor, carrying radio equipment and military-grade backpacks. The second report we showed you on the screen was sent by the Secret Service in the 11 a.m. hour, and it addressed reports of a man with a rifle near the ellipse. Ms. Hutchinson, in prior testimony, you described for us a meeting in the White House around 10 a.m. in the morning of January 6th, involving Chief of Staff Meadows and Tony Ornato. Were you in that meeting?
I was.
Let's listen to your testimony about that meeting, and then we'll have some questions.
I think the last time we talked, you mentioned that some of the weapons that people had at the rally included flagpoles, oversized sticks or flagpoles, bear spray. Is there anything else that you recall hearing about that the people who would gather on the ellipse had?
Tigers,
I recall
rocks to keep
Tony
tigers
and I
away.
having a conversation with Mark probably around 10 a.m., 10:15 a.m., where I remember Tony mentioning knives, guns in the form of pistols and rifles, bear spray, body armor, spears, and flagpoles.
Spears?
Spears
Halberds.
were one item, flagpoles were one item, but then
Broadswords.
Tony had to me
Thought they're fighting like the fucking 300 at
these I think
Thermopylae.
people are fastening spears onto the ends of flagpoles.
Ms. Hutchinson, here's a clip of your testimony regarding Mr. Meadows' response to learning that the rally attendees were armed that day.
I'm sure it's a reasoned response.
What was Mark's reaction, Mr. Meadows' reaction to this list of weapons that people had in the crowd?
When Tony and I went in to talk to Mark that morning, Mark was sitting on his couch and on his phone, which was something typical. And I remember Tony just got right into it. I was like, sorry, I just want to let you know.
derisive.
And informed him, like, this is how many people we have outside the mags right now. These are the weapons that we're known to have. It's possible he listed more weapons off that I just don't recall. And gave him a brief but and concise explanation, but also fairly thorough. And I remember distinctly Mark not looking up from his phone.
He was really into
I
Instagram.
remember
that day.
Damn.
Tony finishing his explanation and it taking a few seconds for Mark to say something to the point where I almost said, Mark, did you hear him? And then Mark chimed in and was like, all right, anything else? Still looking down at his phone.
Yeah.
And
He's fucking watching
Tony
TikTok.
looked at me and I looked at Tony and Tony said, no, sir, do you have any questions? He's like, what are you hearing? And I looked at Tony and I was like, sir, he just told you about what was happening down at the rallies. And he was like, yeah, I know. And then he looked up and said, have you talked to the president? And Tony said, yes, sir, he's aware too. And he said, all right, good.
He asked Tony if Tony had informed the president.
Yes.
And Tony said, yes, he had. So, Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that Mr.
Hey, can you maybe pull your head out of Pickles the Pig TikTok real quick and deal with fucking your job?
That is either a dude who knows what's going to go down and is helping it to go down.
Yeah.
Or is criminally negligent in their work.
It's one or the other.
There's really
one
nothing
or the other.
else,
There's
right?
really not a back and forth there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's a crowd of people that are about to get fucking whipped up into a frenzy, even more than the frenzy we prior whipped them up into, which is why they're here armed to the fucking nuts.
Do you want to do anything about it? Does the president know? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to go back to Pickles
That's
the
actually
Pig
what I
Instagram.
wanted to do about it. Yeah, right.
Ornato told.
Which is an adorable Instagram. It's a pig.
Pickles the Pig is a
Little
real
pig.
Instagram?
It's a little pig. It's like baby pig, and it like runs around and like eats ice cream and stuff. It's super cute.
Haley showed me a reel or something of a little pig on a ball that just like runs around on a ball.
Super cute. Yeah.
It's fucking adorable.
That's super cute. Yeah.
It's ham on the ball.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The president about weapons
It's a
at
ham
the
roll.
rally on the morning of January 6th.
That's what Mr. Ornato relayed to me.
And here's how you characterize Mr. Meadows' general response when people raised concerns about what could happen on January 6th.
Good. Fuck them.
So at the time, in the days leading up to the 6th, there were lots of public reports about how things might go bad on the 6th, even the potential for violence. If I'm hearing you correctly, what stands out to you is that Mr. Meadows did not share those concerns, or at least did not act on those concerns?
Did not act on those concerns would be accurate.
But other people raised them to him, like in this exchange, you mentioned that Mr. Ornato pulled him aside.
That's correct.
Ms. Hutchinson, we're going to show now an exchange of texts between
Can you imagine how mad
you
you'd be if you're
and
one of those
Deputy
police
Chief of
officers that
Staff
got the shit kicked
Ornato.
out of them?
What's that?
Can you imagine how mad you'd be if you're one of the
I
police
know,
officers
right?
that got the shit kicked out of you, trying to defend, and the whole time
Yeah.
you're like,
They
there
don't
should
care.
have been reinforcements.
They don't fucking care.
There should have been
Yeah,
reinforcements.
they didn't care from the beginning.
And these text messages were exchanged while you were at the ellipse. In one text,
Vanish point.
you write, but the crowd looks good from this vantage point as long as we get the shot. He was effing furious. And the text messages also stress that President Trump kept mentioning the OTR, an off-the-record movement. We're going to come back and ask you about that in a minute. But could you tell us, first of all, who it is in the text who was furious?
The he in that text that I was referring to was the president.
Because he was always
And,
fucking furious.
why was he furious, Ms. Hutchinson?
He was furious because he wanted the arena that we had on the ellipse to be maxed out at capacity for all attendees. The advance team had relayed to him that the mags were free-flowing. Everybody who wanted to come in had already come in, but he still was angry about the extra space and wanted more people to come in.
And did you go to the rally in the presidential motorcade?
I was there, yes, in the motorcade.
And were you backstage with the president and other members of his staff and family?
I was.
And you told us, Ms. Hutchinson, about particular comments that you heard while you were in the tent area.
When we were in the offstage announce area tent behind the stage, he was very concerned about the shot, meaning the photograph that we would get because the rally space wasn't full.
What a fucking
One of the reasons, which I
such a petty,
previously
shitty
stated, was
dude.
because he wanted it to be full and for people to not feel excluded because they'd come far to watch him at the rally.
Look at your bald
And he felt
spot.
the mags were at fault
That
for not
tiny
letting
little
everybody
Coke in his hand.
But another leading reason, and likely the primary reason, is because he wanted it full and he was angry that we weren't letting people through the mags with weapons, what the Secret Service deems as weapons and our weapons. But when we were in the offstage announce tent, I was part of a conversation. I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the effing mags away.
Jesus.
That's pretty trusting.
Just to be clear,
of
Ms.
your
Hutchinson, is it
yokels,
your
right?
understanding that the president wanted
Yeah,
to
like
take the
what a
mags
thing to
away
say.
and said that
They're
the
not here
armed
to hurt me.
individuals were
Yeah.
not there to
They're here to hurt
him?
other people,
That's a
though.
fair assessment.
That's why they have weapons.
The issue wasn't with the amount of space available in the official rally area only, but instead that people did not want to have to go through the mags.
And
Let's listen
relinquish their
to a
weapons.
portion of what you told us about that.
In this particular instance, it wasn't the capacity of our space, it was the mags and the people that didn't want to come through. And that's what Tony had been trying to relay to him that morning. You know, it's not the issues that we encountered on the campaign. We have enough space, sir. They don't want to come in right now. They have weapons that they don't want confiscated by the Secret Service, and they're fine on the mall. They can see you on the mall, and they want to march straight to the Capitol from the mall.
With their weapons.
With their weapons that I'll let
The president
them have.
apparently wanted all attendees inside the official rally space and repeatedly said, quote, "They're not here to hurt me."
And just to be clear, so he was told again in that conversation, or was he told again in that conversation that people couldn't come through the mags because they had weapons?
Correct.
And that people, and his response was to say they can march to the Capitol from the ellipse.
Something to the effect of, take the effing mags away. They're not here to hurt me. Let them in. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol after the rally's over. They
Let
can
my
march
people go.
They can
I'm
march from the
Moses.
ellipse. Take the effing mags away. Then they can march to the Capitol.
Ms. Hutchinson, what we saw when those clips were playing were photos provided by the National Archives showing the president in the offstage tent before his speech on the ellipse. You were in some of those photos as well. And I just want to confirm that that is when you heard the president say the people with weapons weren't there to hurt him and that he wanted the Secret Service to remove the magnetometers.
That's correct. In the photos that you displayed, we were standing towards the front of the tent with the TVs, really close to where he would walk out to go onto the stage. These conversations happened 2 to 3 minutes before he took the stage that morning.
Let's reflect on that for a moment. President Trump was aware that a number of the individuals in the crowd had weapons and were wearing body armor. And here's what President Trump instructed the crowd to do.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down.
I have bulletproof glass in front of me.
We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
And the crowd, as we know, did proceed to the Capitol. It soon became apparent to the Secret Service, including the Secret Service teams in the crowd, along with White House staff, that security at the Capitol would not be sufficient.
I'd had 2 or 3 phone conversations with Mr. Ornato when we were at the ellipse, and then I had 4 men on Mr. Meadows' detail with me in between those individuals and then a few other bodies on the ground, just the Secret Service doing advance. They were getting notifications through their radios, and Mr. Ornato in one phone conversation had called me and said, make sure the chief knows that they're getting close to the Capitol. It's they're having trouble stacking bodies.
And Ms. Hutchinson, when you said they were having trouble stacking bodies, did you mean that law enforcement at the Capitol needed more people to defend the Capitol from the rioters?
It was becoming clear to us and to the Secret Service that Capitol police officers were getting overrun at the security barricades outside of the Capitol building, and they were short people to defend the building against the rioters.
And you mentioned that Mr. Ornato was conveying this to you because he wanted you to tell Mr. Meadows. So did you tell Mr. Meadows that people were getting closer to the Capitol and that Capitol Police was having difficulty?
After I had the conversation with Mr. Meadows, after I had the conversation with Mr. Ornato, I went to have the discussion with Mr. Meadows. He was in a secure vehicle at the time making a call. So when I had gone over to the car, I went to open the door to let him know, and he had immediately shut it. I don't know who he was speaking with. It wasn't something that he regularly did, especially when I would go over to give him information. So I was a bit taken aback, but I didn't think much of it, and thinking that I would be able to have the conversation with him a few moments later.
And were you able to have that conversation a few moments later?
Probably about 20 to 25 minutes later. There was another period in between where he shut the door again, and then when he finally got out of the vehicle, we had the conversation. But at that point, there was a backlog of information that he should have been made aware of.
And so you opened the door to the control car and Mr. Meadows pulled it shut?
That's correct.
And he did that 2 times?
That's correct.
And when you finally were able to give Mr. Meadows the information about the violence at the Capitol, what was his reaction?
He almost had a lack of reaction. I remember him saying, all right, something to the effect of, how much longer does the president have left in his speech?
Again, much of this information about the potential for violence was known or learned before the onset of the violence,
Yeah, it is.
early enough for President Trump to take steps to prevent it. He could, for example, have urged the crowd at the Ellipse not to march to the Capitol. He could have condemned the violence immediately once it began, or he could have taken multiple other steps. But as we will see today and in later hearings, President Trump had something else in mind. One other question at this point, Ms. Hutchinson, were you aware of concerns that White House counsel Pat Cipollone or Eric Hirschman had about the language President Trump used in his Ellipse speech?
There were many discussions the morning of the 6th about the rhetoric of the speech that day. In my conversations with Mr. Hirschman, he had relayed that we would be foolish to include language that had been included at the president's request.
That's that Hirschman guy with the
headlines
baseball bat. I'm sure he said
along
foolish.
To the effect of, fight for Trump, we're going to march to the Capitol, I'll be there with you, fight for me, fight for what we're doing, fight for the movement. Things about the vice president at the time, too. Both Mr. Hirschman and White House counsel's office were urging the speechwriters to not include that language for legal concerns and also for the optics of what it could portray the president wanting to do that day.
And we just heard the president say that he would be with his supporters as they marched to the Capitol. Even though he did not end up going, he certainly wanted to. Some have questioned whether President Trump genuinely planned to come here to the Capitol on January 6th. In his book, Mark Meadows falsely wrote that after President Trump gave his speech on January 6th, he told Mr. Meadows that he was, quote, speaking metaphorically about the walk to the Capitol.
What?
As you will see, Donald Trump was not speaking metaphorically. What the fuck? As we heard earlier,
what is it
Rudy Giuliani told Ms. Hutchinson that
What's the metaphor of? I don't understand what are you even talking about. Like, he literally says, and now we're going to march on down, and we're
I'll
going
be there
to
with
change
you.
their mind. I'm going to be with you. And we're going to, and hopefully they'll do the right thing, but we're going to march down there.
He mentions what street. He says, we'll go down there. We'll go any street you want, but down there's open. Or he says something like
Pennsylvania
that.
or whatever, yeah.
What is that a metaphor for?
Nothing.
Like
Literally
the
nothing.
road most convenient?
Literally nothing. It's not a metaphor at all. That's a ridiculous statement. Watch him. Like that's like somebody saying, you watch somebody do something and then they said, I didn't do it.
Yeah,
You're
well,
watching
right.
them do it and they said, I didn't do it. You literally watch him say it out loud.
Yeah, he is the fucking gaslighter in chief.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Mr. Trump plans to travel to the Capitol on January 6th. I want to pause for just a moment to ask you, Ms. Hutchinson, to explain some of the terminology you will hear today. We've heard you use 2 different terms to describe plans for the president's movement to the Capitol or anywhere else. One of those is a scheduled movement, and another one is OTR. Could you describe for us what each of those mean?
A scheduled presidential movement is on his official schedule. It's notified to the press and to a wide range of staff that will be traveling with him. It's known to the public, known to the Secret Service, and they're able to coordinate the movement days in advance. An off-the-record movement is confined to the knowledge of a very, very small group of advisors and staff. Typically, a very small group of staff would travel with him, mostly that are just included in the national security package. You can pull an off-the-record movement together in less than an hour. It's a way to kind of circumvent having to release it to the press, if that's the goal of it, or to not have to have as many security parameters put in place ahead of time to make the movement happen.
Thank you. And let's turn back now to the president's plans to travel to the Capitol on January 6th. We know that White House counsel Pat Cipollone was concerned about the legal implications of such a trip, and he agreed with the Secret Service that it shouldn't happen. Ms. Hutchinson, did you have any conversations with Pat Cipollone about his concerns about the president going to the Capitol on January 6th?
On January...
And did he talk a lot with his hands? Hey, forgot about it, huh?
It's Pat Cipollone.
Cipollone. I can do that. I'm Italian. I'm allowed to do
January
that.
3rd.
I have
My
friends
last
that are
name
Italian.
ends with O, so I can do it.
Mr. Cipollone had approached me.
Some of my
Mark
best friends
had
are Italian.
raised the
have an
prospect of
Italian
going up to the Capitol on January 6th. Mr. Cipollone and I had a brief private conversation where he said to me, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen. This
It's like
would
the
be
only fucking voice of reason.
right?
legally a terrible idea for us.
Yeah.
We have serious legal concerns if we go up to the Capitol that day. And he then urged me to continue relaying that to Mr. Meadows, because it's my understanding that Mr. Cipollone thought that Mr. Meadows was indeed pushing this along with the president.
And we understand, Ms. Hutchinson, that you also spoke to Mr. Cipollone on the morning of the 6th as you were about to go to the rally on the Ellipse. And Mr. Cipollone said something to you like, make sure the movement to the Capitol does not happen. Is that correct?
That's correct. I saw Mr. Cipollone right before I walked out onto West Exec that morning, and Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol, Cassidy. Keep in touch with me.
What
We're
is she
going to
gonna
get
do?
charged with every crime
Right.
imaginable if we make
Ding,
that
ding,
movement
ding.
happen.
And do you remember which crimes Mr. Cipollone was concerned with?
All of
In the
them.
days leading up to the 6th, we had conversations about potentially obstructing justice or defrauding the electoral count.
Huh.
Let's hear
they're talking
about some
about
of
it.
those
Huh.
concerns
You don't have to do that if you
mentioned
concede when you
earlier
lose.
in one of your interviews
You
with us.
loser.
Having a private conversation with Pat late in the afternoon of 3rd or the 4th.
This is going to bother me until you fix it. Okay, so I'm going to put the camera on
What am
you,
I doing?
Tom.
Yeah.
Fix Ruth. She's crooked. You
Oh.
got to fix her a little. What do you think? That's better. That's
There we
good.
go.
Yeah, she's
There we
crooked in real life. She's crooked on the wall, but since the camera's pointed in a
Right.
weird way,
That's why I looked at the
yeah,
camera to adjust
yeah,
it.
it has to be. So,
Right.
Okay, all right. It was going
Right.
to bother me until
Yeah.
that happened. Thank you.
That Pat was concerned it would look like we were obstructing justice. Or
Because of the way you were obstructing
Electoral
justice?
College
That's like
count.
literally the
I
definition.
apologize for
It's going to look
probably
bad
not
if people
being,
see what we do.
very firm with my legal terms here, but that it would look like we were obstructing what was happening on Capitol Hill, and
By sending a mob there
he
to
was
kill
also worried that it
them?
would look like we were inciting a riot or encouraging a riot to erupt on the Capitol, at the Capitol.
In fact, in the days before January 6th and on January 6th itself, President Trump expressed to multiple White House aides that he wanted to go to the Capitol after his speech. Here's what various White House aides have told the committee about the president's desire
Various.
to go to the Capitol.
Various.
Did the president tell you this, that he wanted to speak at the Capitol?
Correct, yes. During the meeting in the dining room, did the
Don't
idea of
zoom
the
in.
president
Stop zooming in.
proceeding or walking to the
Jesus
Capitol on the 6th after his speech come up?
Walking to the Capitol? No.
No, he couldn't make it.
Driving to the Capitol?
It came up.
Okay, how did it come up and what was discussed?
He brought it up. He said, I want to go down to the Capitol.
What about him marching to the Capitol on the 6th?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So it's kind of a general thing. I mean, to get into the specifics of it, I was aware of the desire of the president to potentially march to the or accompany the rally
Rioters.
attendees to the Capitol.
The rally attendees.
When did you first
the
hear about this idea
insurrectionists.
of the president accompanying rally attendees to the Capitol on the 6th?
Well, this was at the 6th. This was during after he finished his remarks.
Well,
When the president said that he would be going to the Capitol during his speech on the ellipse, the Secret Service scrambled to find a way
there while
for
he
him
was
to
still
go.
talking.
We know this from witnesses and the Secret Service, also from messages among staff on the President's National Security Council. The NSC staff were monitoring the situation in real time, and you can see how the situation evolved in the following chat log that the committee has obtained. As you can see, NSC staff believed that Mogul, the president, was, quote, going to the Capitol, and, quote, they are finding the best route now. From these chats, we also know the staff learned of the attack on the Capitol in real time. When President Trump left the ellipse stage at 1:10, the staff knew that rioters had invaded the inaugural stage and Capitol Police were calling for all available officers to respond. When Republican leader Kevin McCarthy heard the president say he was going to the Capitol, he called you, Ms. Hutchinson. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
And in this text message, you told Tony Ornato, quote, McCarthy just called me too. And do you guys think you're coming to my office? Tell us about the call that day with Leader McCarthy during the president's speech on the ellipse.
I was still in the tent behind the stage, and when you're behind...
Yeah, he's the guy who took me off my position earlier in the year. I don't know. Just embellish a little if you can. Tell us exactly what happened.
Behind the stage, you can't really hear what's going on in front of you. So when Mr. McCarthy called me with this information, I answered the call and he sounded rushed, but also frustrated and angry at me. And I was confused because I didn't know what the president had just said. He then explained, the president just said he's marching to the Capitol. You told me this whole week you aren't coming up here. Why would you lie to me? I said, I'm not lying. I wasn't lying to you, sir. We're not going to the Capitol. And he said, well, he just said it on stage, Cassidy. Figure it out. Don't come up here. I said, I'll run the traps on this and I'll shoot you a text. I can assure you we're not coming up to the Capitol. We've already made that decision.
I'm guessing, 20-something?
Yeah.
Maybe early 30s, I don't know. 20-something, I'm going to call her 20-something. Yeah. This 20-something has to control that man.
Yeah, right.
Has to rein in that guy.
Everybody is calling her.
Everybody has to control that person but him.
Right.
Right?
And he's supposed to be the leader
He's supposed to be, right? And everybody
said,
in charge. A woman is way too emotional. Right. We can't have a woman as president. This guy literally had to have handlers dragging him like a fucking rabid dog away from the action.
Yeah. This guy is supposed to be the guy we all said, you're in charge, man. We trust you. That's the thing. It's like you're handing somebody that level of trust and saying, hey, man, you're in charge.
Yeah.
You are going to be good. You're going to keep calm under pressure. He's got the worst temperament of them all.
He's got worst temperament. And like the idea that they're calling her to yell at her for something he impulsively said.
Yep.
It's like you got to eat shit for that guy all the time.
All day.
He's so impulsive.
Terrible job. She has a terrible job.
Worst job.
Press a little bit more, believing me, but I think frustrated that the president had said that. And we ended the phone conversation after that. I called Mr. Ornato to reconfirm that we weren't going to the Capitol, and which is also in our text messages. I sent Mr. McCarthy another text telling him the affirmative that we were not going up to the Capitol, and he didn't respond after that.
He was under siege.
And we understand, Ms. Hutchinson, that the plans for the president to come up to the Capitol had included discussions at some point about what the president would do when he came up to the Capitol on January 6th.
Be out of breath?
Let's look at a clip of one of your interviews discussing that issue with the committee.
When you were talking about a scheduled movement, did anyone say what the president wanted to do when he got here?
No.
Not that I can specifically remember. I remember hearing a few different ideas discussed between Mark and Scott Perry, Mark and Rudy Giuliani.
I don't know which conversations were elevated to the president. I don't know what he personally wanted to do when he went up to the Capitol that day. I know that there were discussions about him having another speech outside of the Capitol before going in. I know that there was a conversation about him going into the House chamber at one point.
As we've all just...
Could you imagine him walking into the fucking House chamber?
Don't count the... I'm going to throw up a little
that'd be amazing. Falls down dead. No, but seriously, the
chaos of that?
The chaos of that. The absolute
busting open the doors with all the fucking shamans and shit behind him.
Let's say he walks up there, right? Like, let's say he walks up with that group of people, and they start pushing past, and he just says, "Let us through." Right. And what do you say to the president of the United States? No, you can't come in. Of course you can come in.
Yeah, I know.
And then you let him through, and then the other people just follow right behind him, and then you're like. Then he goes up to the other door, and what do you say? Do the Capitol Police say no? You can't come in here. Of course they were like, no, you can come in. And then fucking there's 60 fucking shamans behind him, right? Yeah. And they all walk in, and now like,
and you can't squeeze any of them.
What do you do? Yeah, they have to squeeze to get through the door, but you can't tell anybody about it.
Yeah, I kind of wish he had gone because it would have made everything so much more clear cut.
Yeah.
Right?
He had too many people around him holding him down, man.
Yeah, that's the thing is like...
He had too many people covering up for him.
And I'm glad throughout the 4 years that he had people reining in his worst impulses, right? It's probably why we didn't like bomb a hurricane or do any other, like fucking try to annex Greenland or whatever crazy shit.
We would have bought Greenland off somebody from another country who like scammed us out of. We'd have paid for it in Google Play cards.
Dude,
we'd have bought Greenland in Google Play cards.
He would have converted all our currency to Bitcoin, and then
to Luna.
Then we would have gotten fucking Greenland ordered on Wish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's a really small Greenland. It's actually Iceland.
But yeah, I'm glad he had people, but also like this is one time in which they were just like,
oh,
fuck it, dude, fine. You know what?
If you want to go, and then you get a chance to see his
obstruct Congress.
The thing is, if somebody's there not controlling him, because he's like a walking id, right? So he just does what he wants. And so like if somebody is there not controlling him, if he doesn't have this team of people like this young lady and all the other people around him, basically putting a muzzle on him, it would have been a totally different day.
The amount of work people have to do around him, running interference that he's not even aware of.
I know.
That's astonishing.
It's amazing.
People are fucking furiously calling everybody else like
we're such a fucking giant man baby that like other people have to like be careful around you and like do this stuff, and like there's someone who runs around ahead of you to make sure that you don't see a certain picture on the wall or something. Yeah. It's outrageous. What a giant child.
Occurred in the days leading up to January 6th, on the day of the speech, both before and during and after the rally speech, President Trump was pushing his staff to arrange for him to come up here to the Capitol during the electoral vote count. Let's turn now to what happened in the president's vehicle when the Secret Service told him he would not be going to the Capitol after his speech. First, here is the president's motorcade leaving the ellipse after his speech on January 6th.
Yeah, it looks like a motorcade.
That does look like a motorcade. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Ms. Hutchinson, when you returned to the White House in the motorcade after the president's speech, where did you go?
When I returned to the White House, I walked upstairs towards the Chief of Staff's office, and I noticed Mr. Ornato lingering outside of the office. And once we had made eye contact, he quickly waved me to go into his office, which was just across the hall from mine. When I went in, he shut the door, and I noticed Bobby Engel, who is the head of Mr. Trump's security detail, sitting in a chair, just looking somewhat discombobulated and a little lost. And I looked at Tony, and he had said, "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?" I said, "No, Tony, I just got back." "What happened?" Tony proceeded to tell me that When the president got in the Beast, he was under the impression from Mr. Meadows that the off-the-record movement to the Capitol was still possible and likely to happen, but that Bobby had more information. So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, we don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure, we're going back to the West Wing, the president had very strong, a very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel.
No, he didn't.
Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the
pushed him
steering
back.
wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And when Mr. Ornato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
And was Mr. Engel in the room as Mr. Ornato told you this story?
He was.
Did Mr. Engel correct or disagree with any part of the story from Mr. Ornato?
Mr. Engel did not correct or disagree with any part of the story.
I want to pause it real quick. This guy, Ornato, I saw an independent article that said that he denies that this happened.
Yeah, I saw the same
So
thing.
he's denying that it happened now, but he's never testified under oath.
Right.
She's under oath right now.
Right.
Right. So this is important to remember that she's saying she heard the guy say it, and then the other guy didn't dispute it. And those are two people that are in the thing right now.
In the room where it happened.
And none of those people have testified yet.
Right.
So that's something to consider.
And there's a big difference between being under oath and not being under oath.
and you can say whatever you want to any newspaper.
Right.
You can say whatever you want.
But I think it was Kinzinger or Cheney who said anyone who wants to dispute Ms. Hutchinson's account is welcome to do so on the record.
Come on, do it on the record. Exactly.
Come swear in.
Because you can absolutely do it. And Trump should do it on the record too. Because I saw a video of Trump today saying, I don't even know who she is. I barely know her. Whatever. I think she was asking for a job and I said no. And she's mad at me.
There's like 11 fucking people on the fucking.
And so basically do it under oath. Like
Great.
show me you don't know her. Say you don't know her to my face, right?
Right. Yeah.
Did Mr. Engel or Mr. Ornato ever after that tell you that what Mr. Ornato had just said was untrue?
Neither Mr. Ornato
See,
nor Mr.
they went out of their way
Engel
even before
told me
that came
ever
out
it
to
was
say
untrue.
this.
Yeah.
And despite this altercation, this physical altercation during the ride back to the White House, President Trump still demanded to go to the Capitol. Here's what Kayleigh...
Doesn't matter if it happened or not physically. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He was still furious he couldn't go there.
Yeah. He still wants to attend a riot.
He said it out loud in front of everybody and it's on camera. Okay?
Yep.
So that's number one. So I don't need a Secret Service member to say he was mad about not going.
Right.
He was mad about not going.
This feels like when you're in the car with the kids and they want to go to McDonald's and you're not taking them to McDonald's.
Yeah.
And they start losing their fucking fool minds because you won't take them to fucking McDonald's.
I have no idea what that feels like. It's got to be terrible.
It's just annoying.
It's gotta be
and you
the
got to
worst.
turn the radio up real loud to not hear
you gotta
them.
be like, hold on a
It would
second.
have been so great if you just turned the radio
Hold on,
way up.
I want to turn on Ticks and Leeches by Tool really loud.
McEnany, the White House press
That's you, kids. That's
it.
you.
Yeah.
secretary at the time, wrote in her personal notes and told the committee about President Trump's desire to go to the Capitol after returning to the White House.
When you wrote POTUS wanted to walk to the Capitol, was that based solely on what the president said during his speech or anything that he or anybody else said afterwards?
So to the best of my recollection, I believe when we got back to the White House, he said he wanted to physically walk with the marchers. And according to my notes, he then said he'd be fine with just riding the Beast. But to the best of my recollection, he wanted to be a part of the march in some fashion.
Okay, and just for the record, the Beast refers to the presidential limousine?
Yes.
President Trump did not go to the Capitol that day. We understand that he blamed Mark Meadows for that.
So prior to leaving the rally site, when he got off the stage and everybody was making the movement back to the motorcade, I had overheard Mr. Meadows say to him then, as I had prior to Mr. Trump taking the stage that morning, that he was still working on getting an off-the-record movement to the Capitol. So when Mr. Trump took the stage, he was under the impression via Mr. Meadows that it was still possible. So when he got off the stage, I had relayed to
I like
Mr.
that he got off
Meadows
the stage
that
and they
I
put him
had
in the
another
car
conversation with Tony,
and started
movement was
moving,
still
and they're
not
like, we're not going there. Because like they had to know, like you throw
Yeah.
a giant fucking temper tantrum.
They had to put him in his seat.
Yes.
And they had to like buckle him in.
They had to buckle him into his fucking
give
car
him his
seat.
his Cheerios.
Yeah.
And then they'd get on, be on their way.
They're already driving.
They put the iPad in front of him.
Look, Frozen is on. Sir, Frozen is on. Sir, Frozen
he's
is
just
on.
scrolling. Like Mark Meadows is sitting next to him. They're both scrolling.
possible. Mr. Meadows said, okay. And then as they proceeded to go to the motorcade, and Mr. Meadows had reiterated, we're going to work on it. So I talked to Bobby. Bobby has more information. Mark got into his vehicle. To my understanding, Trump got into the Beast. And after we had all arrived back at the White House, later in the day, it had been relayed to me via Mark that the president wasn't happy that Bobby didn't pull it off for him and that Mark didn't work hard enough to get the movement on the books.
The physical altercation that Ms. Hutchinson described in the presidential vehicle was not the first time that the president had become very angry about issues relating to the election. On December 1, 2020, Attorney General Barr said in an interview that the Department of Justice had not found evidence of widespread election fraud sufficient to change the outcome of the election. Ms. Hutchinson,
A month
how did the
before all
president
this went
react
down.
to hearing that news?
Around the time that I understand the AP article went live, I remember hearing noise coming from down the hallway, so I poked my head out of the office, and I saw the valet walking towards our office. He had said, get the chief down to the dining room, the president wants him. So Mark went down to the dining room and came back to the office a few minutes later. After Mark had returned, I left the office and went down to the dining room, and I noticed that the door was propped open and the valet was inside the dining room changing the tablecloth off of the dining room table. He motioned for me to come in and then pointed towards the front of the room near the fireplace mantle and the TV, where I first noticed there was ketchup dripping down the wall and there's a shattered porcelain plate on the floor.
Baby.
The valet had
my
articulated that the
God.
president was extremely angry at the
And he had
Attorney
a
General's.
big man tantrum.
Could you imagine how terrible it would have been if Hillary was in there?
Oh, with her
God,
with
it
her
would have been the
vagina.
worst. Oh, think of all the plates full of ketchup she'd have broke.
Jesus Christ.
How fucking childish.
I'm
she'd
so
be.
glad we've
Could you-
never hired a vagina.
Have
for
you
this.
ever, as an adult, like broke a plate in anger?
No, Lord, no.
In
No.
anger?
No.
Could you
I've never
imagine-
thrown anything in anger
Could
as
you
a grown up.
imagine, Like you get so mad. I've been mad before. Actually, I've been mad enough where like I've slammed doors or things. Like
Sure.
I've done that. I've been mad.
I've slammed
been
a
that
door.
mad.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine like ruining my own shits. Or just like I'm so mad. I'm like, but I'm not gonna ruin it because it's like my shit.
That's my God.
That's my shit.
Then
Like,
my
it's
shit's
cool.
gonna be
That's my
broken.
shit. Yeah.
No,
but it's not his shit. It's
The thing is,
fucking
like-
White House China.
Right,
So
yeah.
Who cares?
I was just saying, like,
He doesn't
it
care.
doesn't-
His shit in the middle of the fucking table.
That
he
guy
doesn't
doesn't
give a shit.
care, even if it
He
was
doesn't
his
care.
shit. He'll
Yeah.
just have more shit.
He doesn't care. Get
Is
the
it-
valet. I shit in the table
And
again.
I'm surprised he didn't throw the shit at the valet.
Yeah, exactly.
Like line them all up and
Yeah.
just fucking throw shit
He
at him.
kills one a day. He just picks one to die. Yeah.
God.
What a pathetic loser. What a fucking pathetic
this
loser.
is-
That's your guy.
It's
the
a
right.
mantrum.
That's your guy, the right. That's your guy. That's your fucking shirt off, hulked out, like weird romance novel-esque picture of that guy. Yeah.
But that, like, what they don't understand is the harder thing is self-control when you're angry.
Yeah.
Like the harder, like the more strength comes from more self-control. Like when you lose control, that is easy to do. Anybody can lose control.
Yeah.
A fucking 3-year-old can lose control. What you teach them the entire time that you grow up is how to not lose
do
control.
that. Yeah, sure.
So like, but that's not their vision of strength. Their vision of strength is who can you roll over the top of?
Yeah, that's really it.
That's their
really
vision
it.
of strength.
Really it.
Not like how much mastery over yourself do you have.
Right.
AP interview and had thrown his lunch against the wall.
What a waste of a good lunch.
Which was causing them to have to clean up. So I grabbed a towel and started wiping the ketchup off of the wall to help the valet out.
Your job is to clean
said
ketchup
something
off the
to
wall
effect
of the
of,
White House.
He's really ticked off about this. I would stay clear of him for right now. He's really, really ticked off about this right now.
And Ms. Hutchinson, was this the only instance that you are
Nuclear
aware of where the
codes.
president
This is
threw
not the
dishes?
only instance.
It's not.
And are there other instances in the dining room that you recall where he expressed his anger?
There were several times throughout my tenure with the chief of staff that I was aware of him either throwing dishes or flipping the tablecloth to let all the contents of the table
Are
go
you
onto the
kidding
floor
me?
and let the breaker
What a ridiculous
go
human being.
everywhere.
He was in charge of everything,
And
man.
Ms. Hutchinson, Attorney General
In the
Barr.
middle of the first of the first pandemic in 100 years.
You don't give a guy who's going to dump everything off a table the nuclear codes.
I know, man.
You just don't. He can't control his anger. He can't control anything. Why do you trust him with anything else? Why do you trust him with a standing army?
I literally cannot understand how we got here. Trump is known his entire career throughout New York as a fucking bad guy.
Yeah.
And he just nobody's like, oh, great guy. He's known as a fucking bad guy. They hired him for The Apprentice because he's an asshole who will say, you're fired, and that plays funny. Like the asshole routine plays funny. This is a guy with how many wives and how many kids and how many fucking mistresses and how many people that he didn't pay. He's just got a history.
He's got a lineage. He's got a whole long line of garbage and just being a shitty person.
No matter what you don't like about somebody, he checks a box.
Yeah.
Whatever your pet dislike. Oh, I don't like, this kind of. He checks every box of every.
And then you gave him the new code.
And half the country's like, that's our guy.
That's our guy.
That's it. Let's all roll some coal or whatever.
Described to the committee the president's angry reaction when he finally met with President Trump. Let's listen.
And I said, look, I know that you're dissatisfied with me, and I'm glad to offer my resignation. And he pounded the table very hard. Everyone sort of jumped, and he said, accept it.
That's okay. So that was the first half that we just watched. Really just trying to explain to everybody. And I think, even if you're going to dispute little tiny things like, oh, he didn't try to grab the steering wheel or whatever.
Right.
If you're going to try to dispute that, it doesn't matter.
No.
The fact that he wanted to go there is the real key. Right. Right. They're trying to say he wanted to go there so badly that he was willing to fight a Secret Service agent in hand-to-hand combat to do so.
Oh my God, do I wish they would have let that play out.
Please, I wish they would have done that on the stage in front of everybody.
Yeah, because his desire to join the rioters, the insurrectionists storming the Capitol, has now been corroborated by Cassidy and Kayleigh McEnany or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they both said it.
And several other people in testimony have already said it. They said he wanted to go. He wanted to go. He wanted to go. And these are all aides. These aren't people who are outsiders.
Right. No,
these are all aides. And he said it with his mouth face.
Yes, he did.
He said it in front of everybody.
I'll be with you.
I'll be with you.
Yeah.
He's not fucking Jesus. You're not going to drink his blood and eat his flesh. He's going to be with you in fucking not in spirit. He doesn't have a spirit. He's got to fucking move with his body.
All 205 pounds of it or whatever he claims he was. Did he say he was 225?
No, he said he was 186. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I remember he said something. I remember he claimed his weight.
Weird. It was something weird.
And I remember being like, that's what I weigh.
Nah.
We don't look the same.
Trump's associate, Roger Stone, attended rallies during the afternoon and the evening of January 5th in Washington, D.C.
Roger Stone.
On January 5th and 6th,
that guy looks like a Batman
Stone was
villain.
photographed with multiple members of the Oath Keepers who were allegedly serving as his security detail.
Oath Keepers. Huh.
As we now
He
know,
looks fake.
Multiple members
fake.
of that organization have been charged.
He looks like somebody channeled all the evil in a ventriloquist dummy.
Yes.
They're like, you know what? We're going to put it all in one dummy, and that's it.
Like no part of me would be surprised if he peeled off his silicone mask.
100%. No, if he had like a working skeleton underneath there,
I'd be like, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. He kind of looks like a flesh-colored Muppet.
He does. He is 100% a Batman villain.
Yeah.
100%.
And not even a particularly interesting one.
Like he's the one that Batman beats in the beginning of the comic book so he gets to the real
right, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or pled guilty to crimes associated with January 6th. Mr. Stone has invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination before this committee. General Michael Flynn has also taken the fifth before this committee. Mr. Stone previously had been convicted of other federal crimes unrelated to January 6th. General Flynn had pleaded guilty to a felony charge also predating and unrelated to January 6th. President Trump pardoned General Flynn just weeks after the presidential election. And in July of 2020, he commuted the sentence Roger Stone was to serve. The night before January 6th, President Trump instructed his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, to contact both Roger Stone and Michael Flynn regarding what would play out the next day. Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that President Trump asked Mark Meadows to speak with Roger Stone and General Flynn on January 5th?
That's correct. That is my understanding.
And Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that Mr. Meadows called Mr. Stone on the 5th?
I'm under the impression that Mr. Meadows did complete both a call to Mr. Stone and General Flynn the evening of the 5th.
And do you know what they talked about that evening, Ms. Hutchinson?
I'm not sure.
Is it your understanding that Mr. Giuliani, Mr. Eastman, and others had set up what has been called, quote, a war room at the Willard Hotel on the night of the 5th?
I was aware of that the night of the 5th.
And do you know if Mr. Meadows ever intended to go to the Willard Hotel on the night of the 5th?
Mr. Meadows had a conversation with me where he wanted me to work with Secret Service on a movement from the White House to the Willard Hotel so he could attend the meeting or meetings with Mr. Giuliani and his associates in the war room.
And what was your view as to whether or not Mr. Meadows should go to the Willard that night?
I had made it clear to Mr. Meadows that I didn't believe it was a smart idea for him to go to the Willard Hotel that night. I wasn't sure everything that was going on at the Willard Hotel, although I knew enough about what Mr. Giuliani and his associates were pushing during this period. I didn't think that it was something appropriate for the White House Chief of Staff to attend or to consider involvement in. I made that clear to Mr. Meadows. Throughout the afternoon, he mentioned a few more times going up to the Willard Hotel that evening and then eventually dropped the subject the night of the 5th and said that he would dial in instead.
So General Flynn has
a Zoom call?
Appeared before this committee. And when he appeared before our committee, he took the 5th. Let's briefly view a clip of General Mike Flynn taking the Fifth Amendment. General Flynn, do you believe the violence on January 6th was justified?
Do we have a minute?
Yes.
All right, we're back. Congressman Cheney, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes.
So you can
General
non-answer
Flynn,
it?
do you believe the violence on January 6th was justified?
Is that, can I get a clarification? Is that a moral question or are you asking a legal question?
I'm asking both.
What is?
I said the fifth.
Do you believe the violence on January 6th was justified morally?
Take the fifth.
You believe the violence on January 6th was justified legally?
Fifth.
General Flynn, do you believe in the peaceful transition of power in the United States of America?
The fifth.
You won't answer whether you believe in the peaceful
That's the most
transfer of
disturbing
power.
thing I've seen on all of these together. That's the most disturbing thing I've seen. That a guy that high up.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he got kicked out early of the Trump administration, but
he was high up there.
Before the Trump administration started, he was part of that crew.
Right.
Then he was caught talking to different places, and they said, no, you can't do that. And so he basically stepped down, right?
Right.
And then he got there was like a felony for that.
But dude,
like,
he was a former general.
right? This is a guy who's high up, and they asked, "Do you believe in the peaceful transfer of power?" And he said, "I take the fifth," against self-incrimination.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's
Let's
why you
move
play
on
it.
now to
That's
January
why you play
6th
this shit,
and the
right?
conduct
It's 'cause
of Donald
these
Trump
are such
and Mark Meadows during the
self-evidently bad
attack
actors.
on the
Unreal.
Capitol. Ms. Hutchinson, I'd like
God, the cabal
now for
of
us to listen to a
assholes.
your description of what transpired in the West Wing during the attack. For context, in this clip, you describe the time frame starting at about 2 p.m.
So I remember Mark being alone in his office for
That's not a loaded question.
quite some time.
It's
and,
just,
you know,
it's not a loaded question.
No.
It is not a loaded question.
It's not a loaded question.
Whether you believe in that is not.
It's not a loaded question.
Yes, we all.
Yeah.
If you believe in
It's a
fucking democracy,
It's a softball question.
Right.
Everybody hits that question out of the park unless you're a traitor.
yeah.
I know we've spoken about Ben Williamson going in at one point, and I don't personally remember Ben going in. I don't doubt that he had gone in. But I remember him being alone in his office for most of the afternoon, around 2 o'clock to 2:05. Around 2 o'clock to 2:05, you know, we were watching the TV, and I could see that the rioters were getting closer and closer to the Capitol. Mark still hadn't popped out of his office or said anything about it. So that's when I went into his office. I saw that he was sitting on his couch, on his cell phone. Same as the morning where he was just kind of scrolling and typing.
Jesus Christ. Get him off his phone.
Good Lord.
I said, "Hey, are you watching the TV, Chief?"
You're gonna have to do like the teachers do, like you put them in a box or something
Right,
at the front of the door.
All your phones in the bucket.
Everybody puts your
You
phone
can have
in
your phone back
bucket.
at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
His TV was small, and you can see it, but I didn't know if he was really paying attention. I said, "You watching the TV, Chief?" And he was like, "Yeah." I said, "The rioters are getting really close. Have you talked to the president?" He said, "No, he wants to be alone right now." Still looking at his phone. So I start to
Who
get
fucking
frustrated
cares?
because
You don't get alone time.
I sort of felt
You're
like I
the
was
president of the
watching
United States.
Your job is to act.
This is not a great comparison, but a bad car accident that was about to happen where you can't stop it, but you want to be able to do something. And I remember thinking in that moment,
The fucking apathy of Meadows.
Mark needs to snap out of this, and I don't know how to snap him out of this, but he needs to care. And I just remember I blurted out, I said, "Mark, do you know where Jim's at right now?" And he looked up at me at that point and said, "Jim?" And I said, "Mark, he was on the floor a little while ago giving a floor speech. Did you listen?" He said, "Yeah, it was real good. Did you like it?" And I said, "Yeah. Do you know where he's at right now?" He said, "Well, no, I haven't heard from him." And I said, "You might want to check in with him, Mark." And I remember pointing at the TV and I said, "The rioters are getting close. They might get in." And he looked at me and said something to the effect of, "All right, I'll give him a call."
Not long after the rioters broke into the Capitol, you described what happened with White House counsel Pat Cipollone.
No more than a minute and a half later, I see Pat Cipollone barreling down the hallway towards our office and rushed right in, looked at me, said, "Is Mark in his office?" And I said, "Yes." He just looked at me and started shaking his head and went over, opened Mark's office door, stood there with the door propped open,
They got to get
and said
Cipollone
something
to
to me.
testify.
Mark's still sitting on his phone. I remember glancing and he's still sitting on his phone.
Jesus Christ, get off your phone.
And I
What are
remember
you
Pat
reading?
saying to him something to the effect of, "The rioters have gotten to the Capitol, Mark. We need to go down
I
and see
say
the
that as I
president
look
now."
up Cipollone's picture on my
And Mark looked up at him and said, "He doesn't want to do anything, Pat." And Pat said something to the effect of, and very clearly had said this to Mark, something to the effect of, Mark, something needs to be done or people are going to die and the blood's going to be on your effing hands. This is getting out of control. I'm going down there. And at that point, Mark stood up from his couch, both of his phones in his hand. He had his glasses on still. He walked out with Pat. He put both of his phones on my desk and said, let me know if Jim calls. And they walked out and went down to the dining room.
A few minutes later, Representative Jordan called back.
What is the two phones thing? Oh, like a work phone.
A couple minutes later, so likely around between 2:15 and 2:25. I know the tweet went out at 2:24. I don't remember if I was there when the tweet went out or if it happened right afterwards, but Jim had called. I answered the phone, said 1 second. He knew it was, I guess he knew it was me. I introduced myself, but I don't remember if he called my cell phone or if he had called one of Mark's. But I answered the phone and said, 1 sec, Mark's on the hall, I'm going to go hand the phone to him. He said, okay. So I went down, I asked the valet if Mark was in the dining room.
Jim Jordan.
Yeah,
Valet said yes. I opened the door to the dining room, briefly stepped in to get Mark's attention, showed him the phone, like flipped the phone his way so he could see it said Jim Jordan. He had stepped to where I was standing there holding the door open, took the phone talking to Jim with the door still propped open. So I took a few steps back. So I probably was 2 feet from Mark. He was standing in the doorway going to the Oval Office dining room. They had a brief conversation, and in the crossfires, I heard briefly like what they were talking about, but in the background I had heard conversations in the Oval dining room at that point talking about the Hang Mike Pence chants.
That clip ended, Ms. Hutchinson, with you recalling that you heard the President, Mr. Meadows, and the White House counsel discussing the Hang Mike Pence chants. And then you described for us what happened next.
It wasn't until Mark hung up the phone, handed it back to me. I went back to my desk. A couple minutes later, him and Pat came back, possibly Eric Hirschman too. I'm pretty sure Eric Hirschman was there. But I'm confident it was Pat that was there. I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung. And Mark had responded something to the effect of, you heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong.
What's that, Ian?
I said, can it be both?
I doubt it with Pence. I doubt Pence is hung.
You don't think he's packing a big old naka? You don't think he's got a trouser snake that hangs down his leg? You don't think it coils around his thigh, Tom, like an anaconda? Pence, that silver-haired fox with a giant anaconda baby arm cock that hangs out. You don't think so? You don't think he pleases his mother with that giant
I was going to say,
cock?
nobody who calls his wife mother is packing heat. Absolutely not.
You don't think he's got a concealed carry license for that giant baby arm he's got down there?
To which Pat said something, this is effing crazy. We need to be doing something more. Briefly stepped into Mark's office. And when Mark had said something to the effect of, he doesn't think they're doing anything wrong, knowing what I had heard briefly in the dining room, coupled with Pat discussing the Hang Mike Pence chants in the lobby of our office, and then Mark's response, I understood there to be the rioters in the Capitol that were chanting for the vice president to be hung.
Hanged.
Let me pause here on this point.
He's already hung.
The rioters chanted Hang Mike Pence. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, said that, quote, Mike deserves it, and that those rioters were not doing anything wrong. This is a sentiment that he has expressed at other times as well. In an interview with ABC News correspondent Jonathan Karl, President Trump was asked about the supporters chanting Hang Mike Pence last year. Instead of condemning them, the former president defended them.
And hang Mike
Because
Pence.
it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right?
Yeah.
How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
President Trump's view that the rioters were not doing anything wrong and that, quote, Mike deserved it, helps us to understand why the president did not ask the rioters to leave the Capitol for multiple hours. In fact, he put this tweet out at 2:24 p.m. Ms. Hutchinson, do you recall seeing this tweet in which the president said the vice president did not have the courage to do what needed to be done?
I do.
And Ms. Hutchinson, what was your reaction when you saw this tweet?
As a staffer that worked to always represent the administration to the best of my ability and to showcase the good things that he had done for the country.
What were they? Can you point one out?
Name any.
I remember feeling frustrated, disappointed, and really, it felt personal. I was really sad.
You were mad your career was over.
I was disgusted. It was unpatriotic. It was un-American. We were watching the Capitol building get defaced over a lie.
Did you resign right then?
What's that? Did she resign over?
So Grisham,
yeah, was
she came out this week and showed some texts, and those texts showed Melania Trump.
Oh yeah.
Saying, like, evidently she said that she sent to Melania, do you want to say something about the rioters, that rioting is bad and you shouldn't do that, you should leave or whatever?
And Melania said no.
And then she literally gave her, she said she resigned as soon as she received that text from Melania back that said no, she resigned immediately.
Good.
That's what she said. And I'm like, okay, why didn't she resign?
Yeah. The thing is, like, I'm glad she's testifying and I find her credible.
Yeah.
Right? But also, and I do mean this, it is impossible to respect anybody who worked closely for the Trump administration.
I also don't believe you. Like, you know, you were thinking of your own ass, like you said.
Yeah.
You know,
what she was worried about.
I don't believe that you're.
Was
I don't believe
everything is going south, and my whole career is going to look like shit now, and it does. Like, you know, from I've read multiple articles that people who worked for the West Wing, people who like Trump staffers, they can't get jobs.
Yeah.
Their resumes are garbage now. Their CVs don't.
Yeah.
Like they don't play anywhere.
Yeah.
They used to be these jobs. Like these were great jobs.
These were the jobs that catapulted you into something else.
These are garbage jobs now. So she's probably like, fuck my career.
Yeah.
It was something that was really hard in that moment to digest, knowing what I had been hearing down the hall.
When you work for a
in the
racist,
conversations that were
violent
happening.
a guy who wanted to kill his
Seeing
vice
that
president.
tweet come up and knowing what was happening on the Hill. And it's something that I still struggled to work through the emotions of that.
Wonder how she felt working through.
We have also spoken to multiple.
I'm sorry, I know we got to listen to this, but I wonder how she felt when he wanted the protesters, the BLM protesters, to be shot in the legs, or to be like dispersed via helicopter. Like, that's the thing about these people.
Like, I don't fucking buy
no
it.
sympathy for anyone.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, and I don't care how well they come off now.
Yeah, you're working through your feelings, whatever. You didn't work through your fucking feelings for
you're
fucking
a piece of
as
shit.
long as you worked for him, you didn't work for your fucking feelings. And now I got to believe you got feelings. I don't believe it.
All of these people are self-interested. I do think she's telling the truth, but I think she's telling the truth now because so much other truth has come out that if she tells the truth now, she is likely to eat less shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly
it.
Other White House staff about their reaction to Donald Trump's 224 tweet, condemning Mike Pence for not having the courage to refuse to count electoral votes, an act that would have been illegal. Matthew Pottinger, a former Marine intelligence officer who served in the White House for 4 years, including as Deputy National Security Advisor, was in the vicinity of the Oval Office at various points throughout the day. When he saw that tweet, he immediately decided to resign his position.
Yep.
Let's watch him describe his reaction to the president's
So there's
tweet.
people who like immediately were like, no,
that's a bridge too far.
One of my staff brought me a printout of a tweet.
And you jumped
by
off the ship.
president. And the tweet said something to the effect that Mike Pence, the vice president, didn't have the courage to do what should have been done. I read that tweet and made a decision at that moment to resign. That's where
2 weeks
I
early.
knew that I was leaving.
Yeah,
that
there's a
day,
bunch of other people though
once
that
I
did
read
it
that
too.
tweet.
And look, I can get that there's a bridge too far for you.
Yeah,
right? I can get that there's a bridge too far for you. Everybody who had any integrity resigned on that day.
Yes.
Anybody who had any integrity
Any
at
at
all.
all.
At all.
Yep.
If you stayed on till the end, I don't believe you. I'm sorry. I just don't believe you.
Yeah, if you made it like you had very low integrity to make it to January 6th.
Don't get me wrong. It's not
but
like
if
I
you had a
respect
shred,
you. It's not like I respect
I'm right there with you. Even a
but
shred left.
You had a little bit of something.
There's nobody on the 7th.
But on the 7th, I don't have any respect for you. Fuck you.
Yep.
Ultimately, members of the White House staff, Sarah Matthews, cabinet members Secretary Chao and Secretary DeVos resigned as well. Here is Secretary DeVos's resignation
DeVos
letter.
is a big donor, so I want to read it.
As you can see, in resigning on January 6th, Secretary
surprised there's
DeVos
no
said to the
mistakes in the
president,
spelling.
quote, "There's no mistaking the impact your rhetoric had on the situation, and it is the inflection point for me." Let's also look at Secretary Chao's resignation statement. When Secretary Chao resigned, she spoke.
Betsy DeVos.
I know.
Resigned that. Betsy DeVos resigned that day.
When a hive of villains in your volcano villain layer are all like,
sorry, man.
We're all out.
I'm not doing it
We're
anymore.
out.
I'm not doing it anymore.
Like, that's too much.
That's enough, Destro.
So, yeah right.
You are off the chain, my friend.
Fucking shit.
Yeah. When DeVos does something, you're like, I have zero respect for her, but at least she did this right.
Right.
Spoke of the January 6th attack, and she said, quote, "As I am sure is the case with many of you, this has deeply troubled me in a way I simply cannot set aside." Ms. Hutchinson, in our prior...
And she's not easily deeply troubled because she sleeps next to Mitch McConnell. So understand that she's not easily deeply troubled.
The fucking stomach.
You got it.
On that
That's
lady.
Like cast iron.
Seriously.
Just a trap. Just a kettle
just
stove.
to wake up.
Next to Mitch McConnell every day.
Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
Wakes up in the middle of the night and pads to their fucking bathroom to take a piss, and she wakes up and looks at him in his fucking drawers in the fucking half naked.
He's 100% got boxers that go down to his knees.
Either that or he's tighty whities.
100%. Or thong.
The stomach.
He gets out and she just starts humming the thong song. Dong, 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 dong.
interviews, we've asked you about what
She
the
could eat
president's
roadkill.
advisors were urging him to do during the attack. You've described roughly 3 different camps of thought inside the White House that day. Can you tell us about those?
There was a group of individuals that were strongly urging him to take immediate and swift action. I would classify the White House counsel's office, Mr. Hirschman, Miss Ivanka Trump, in that category of really working to get him to take action and pleading with him to take action. There was a more neutral group where advisors were trying to toe the line, knowing that Mr. Trump didn't necessarily want to take immediate action and condemn the riots, but knowing something needed to be done. And then there was the last group, which was deflect and blame. Let's blame Antifa. These aren't our people. It's my understanding that Mr. Meadows was in
Let's just blame
the
Antifa.
deflect and blame category, but he did end up taking a more neutral route, knowing that there were several advisors in the president's circle urging him to take more action, which I think was reflected in the rhetoric released later that day in the videos.
You told us that the White House counsel's office was in the camp encouraging the president to tell the rioters to stop the attack and to leave the Capitol. Let's listen.
White House counsel's office wanted there to be a strong statement out to condemn the rioters. I'm confident in that.
Now let's look at just one example of what some senior advisors to the president were urging. Ms. Hutchinson, could you look at the exhibit that we're showing on the screen now?
I love the illegals.
Have you seen this note before?
Crossed out.
That's a note that I wrote at the direction of the chief of staff
Not
on
illegal,
January
without
6th,
proper authority,
likely around
guys.
3 o'clock.
It's not illegal.
And it's written on a chief of staff note card, but that's your handwriting, Ms. Hutchinson?
That's my handwriting.
And why did you write this note?
And why did you
The
write it
chief
so
of staff was
messily?
in a meeting with Eric Hirschman and potentially Mr. Philbin, and they had rushed out of the office fairly quickly. Mark had handed me the note card with one of his pens and started dictating a statement for the president to potentially put out.
And, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. There were 2 phrases on there, one illegal and then one without proper authority. The illegal phrase was the one that Mr. Meadows had dictated to me. Mr. Hirschman had chimed in and said, also put without legal authority. There should have been a slash between the 2 phrases. It was an or if the president had opted to put one of those statements out. Evidently he didn't. Later that afternoon, Mark came back from the Oval Dining Room and put the palm card on my desk with illegally crossed out, but said we didn't need to take further action on that statement.
So, to your knowledge, this statement was never issued?
It was, to my knowledge, it was never issued.
And Ms. Hutchinson, did you understand that Ivanka Trump wanted her father to send people home?
That's my understanding, yes.
Let's play a clip of you addressing that issue.
I remember her saying at various points, she wanted her dad to send them home. She wanted her dad to tell them to go home peacefully, and she wanted to include language that he necessarily wasn't on board with at the time.
This is clever. Here's what I think they're doing. I think they're trying to play like Ivanka against her dad.
Yeah.
By saying she was one of the good people and that she's kind of above the
fray.
Above the fray. You're not. You were one of the people who wanted
Right.
to send people home, so you should certainly come back and testify in front of everybody
It'd be
else.
great.
Because she's already done it once.
She has.
Where she had her Instagram filter on. or
Right, with her weird uncanny
she
valley
looked
face and
crazy.
everything.
She looked like
Yeah.
she looked like when you hold a mirror up to your face and you look weird because you hold the mirror up
Right?
to one side or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, like that's the
looks
thing
insane.
that's the thing though is that she's essentially I think they're trying to like make it seem like she might turn on him even more. That's what I think. That's why I think they're doing this, because there's no real reason to bring Ivanka up right now unless you want to try to maybe convince her publicly to come.
Right. Well, other than just to say, like, people were telling him
Yeah.
to send
That
these
could be
people
too,
home.
but it feels
and he didn't
feels
do
a little
it.
more devious like that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I feel like there's going to be a lot more coming out and a lot more hearings.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, I don't think we're anywhere near done. No.
You will hear more about this at our later hearings, but we have evidence of many others imploring Donald Trump and
Right.
Mark Meadows to take action. Here
And
is
they
some of
didn't,
that
'cause they're
evidence.
stupid.
Text messages sent to Mark Meadows during the attack. This is a text message at 2:32 from Laura Ingram. Hey, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. In the next message,
love that she
this
has
is hurting all of
everybody's
us.
text.
I know.
And then
Yeah,
he's
nice
destroying
fucking
his
fourth
legacy
estate.
and playing into every stereotype. We lose all credibility against the BLM Antifa crowd if things go south. The president's son, Don Jr., also urgently contacted Mark Meadows. At 2:53, he wrote, "He's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough." As you will see, these are just two of the numerous examples of Trump supporters and allies urging the president to tell his supporters to leave the Capitol. It would not have been hard for the president to simply walk down to the briefing room a few feet down the hall from the Oval Office. As Norah O'Donnell noted during an interview with House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, where Leader McCarthy said he believed the attack was un-American.
I want to quickly bring in Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader. Leader McCarthy, do you condemn this violence?
I completely condemn the violence in the Capitol. What we're currently watching unfold is un-American. I am disappointed. I'm sad. This is not what our country should look like. This is not who we are. This is not the First Amendment. This has to stop, and this has to stop now.
That's all,
Leader
folks.
McCarthy, the President of the United States has a briefing room steps from the Oval Office. The cameras are hot 24/7, as you know. Why hasn't he walked down and said that now?
I conveyed to the president what I think is best to do, and I'm hopeful the president will do it.
Twat.
Idiot.
Republican House member Mike Gallagher also implored the president to call off the attack.
It's helpful.
Mr. President, you have got to stop this. You are the only person who can call this off. Call it off. The election is over. Call it off. This is bigger than you. It's bigger than any member of Congress. It is about the United States of America, which is more important than any politician. Call it off. It's over.
Despite the fact that many people close to Donald Trump were urging him to send people home, he did not do so until later, much later. At 4:17 p.m., Donald Trump finally told the rioters to go home and that he loved them. Here's a portion of the video President Trump recorded from the White House.
We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel.
What does that even mean?
What does that mean?
Let's watch it one more time. You see how others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I don't think it makes any sense at all, but
The video President Trump recorded from the White House.
We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special.
You're very beautiful.
You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go
so
home
bad
in
and
peace.
so evil?
what the fuck does that mean?
But as we will show,
it feels like somebody just like random word generated that together.
He's just a fucking
that doesn't make any
wreck.
sense. Also like those words are. He's trying to still rile people up.
He is, and like because he's trying to say like I was treated badly,
and those people are so evil,
right?
And evil people. I mean, you demonize people that are.
The right makes fun of Biden because Biden has a fucking speech impediment,
right?
But if you just write down what Biden says, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So like even if. And it's bullshit because he speaks perfectly intelligibly, right? He's not difficult to understand.
And
but he has a little bit of a speech impediment.
Sure.
But everything he says fucking means something. It's not like this where you're like, I literally cannot parse the language.
Yeah. Whatever you said, you might as well just stand up and be like person, man, woman, camera, TV,
bicycle
or
tire,
whatever.
right? Yeah.
Even greater detail in future hearings, Donald Trump was reluctant to put this message out. And he still could not bring himself to condemn the attack. Ms. Hutchinson,
I misremembered it. From what I remembered, I thought they put something out later that night, but I think he actually put something out the next day or something that condemned it.
The thing that he put out where he appeared to be controlled by a robot.
I think that's the next day. I don't think it's the day. I don't think it's the day. I misremembered it, I think. So.
I don't know when that happened. Yeah, I don't know.
Has told us that too.
The one that he put out at 4:17.
I'm sure you've discussed it, and just to elaborate if I hadn't already at that point, I recall him being reluctant to film the video on the 6th. I was not involved in any of the logistics or the planning for that video. I just remember seeing the video go out and feeling a little shocked after it went out.
On the evening of January 6th, and the day
very
after,
special. We love
the president's family and his senior staff and others tried to encourage the president to condemn the violence and commit to the peaceful transition of power. At 3:31 p.m. on January 6th, Sean Hannity of Fox News texted Mark Meadows. Mr. Hannity said, quote, "Can he make a statement? I saw the tweet. Ask people to leave the Capitol. Later that evening, Mr. Hannity sent another text message to Mark Meadows. This time, he shared a link to a tweet. That tweet reported that President Trump's cabinet secretaries were considering invoking the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump.
God, they should have.
I wish they had.
Fuck.
God.
As you can
Someone at a
see on the
spine,
screen,
one person.
the 25th Amendment to the Constitution creates a process for the transition of power if a president is unfit or unable to serve. 25th Amendment has never been used to remove a president. But the committee has learned that after the attack on the U.S. Capitol, this was being discussed by members of President Trump's cabinet as a way of stripping the full power of the presidency from Donald Trump.
Why didn't you?
President Trump's supporters
What does
were
somebody
worried.
have to do?
In addition to the tweet that he sent Mark Meadows after the attack, Sean Hannity apparently spoke with President Trump and warned him about what could happen. We understand that this text message that Sean Hannity sent to Kayleigh McEnany on January 7th shows what Mr. Hannity said to the president. First, no more stolen election talk. Second, impeachment and 25th Amendment are real. Many people will quit. Ms. Hutchinson, you told us that you were hearing about discussions related to the 25th Amendment. Here's part of what you said.
Mr. Pompeo reached out to have the conversation with Mr. Meadows in case he hadn't heard the discussions amongst cabinet secretaries. And from what I understand, it was more of a, this is what I'm hearing. I want you to be aware of it. But I also think it's worth putting on your radar because you are the chief of staff. You're technically the boss of all the cabinet secretaries. And, you know, if conversations progress, you should be ready to take action on this. Like, I'm concerned for you and your positioning with this. Yeah. Reach out to me if you have any questions or like I can be helpful with you at all.
Inside the White House, the president's advisors, including members of his family, wanted him to deliver a speech to the country. Deputy White House counsel Pat Philbin prepared the first draft of what would be the president's remarks on national healing, delivered via pre-taped video on January 7th.
Okay, it was that.
When he arrived at the White House on the 7th, Mr. Philbin believed that more needed to be said. So he sat down and started writing. He shared the draft with Pat Cipollone, who also believed the president needed to say more. Mr. Cipollone.
You know, just out of curiosity, I was thinking to myself, I was like, did Trump attend the inauguration? Because I just saw that last line from Sean Hannity that said, inauguration, something about Trump, and he said, you know, he's interested or something like that. And I thought, I don't remember Trump attending the inauguration. He got on a jet and he flew away, right? Yeah. So, and I remember that. And I thought, well, is it customary? Is it customary for that to happen? And so I looked it up.
Yeah.
Here's the presidents who have not attended the inauguration of their successor.
Of the new president.
John Adams in 1801 left Washington rather than attend Thomas Jefferson's inauguration. John Quincy Adams also left town, unwilling to be present for Andrew Jackson's in 1829.
Okay.
1841, Martin Van Buren, for reasons unknown, not present for William Henry Harrison. Andrew Johnson in 1869 conducted a final cabinet meeting rather than attend the inauguration of Ulysses S. Grant. Woodrow Wilson, due to poor health, remained inside the Capitol building in 1921. Donald Trump held a departure ceremony and then left Washington, D.C. prior to the 2020 inauguration.
So 100 years.
100 years. They all attended.
A bunch of oldie McOldersons and then 100 years of
100 years people were good enough sports in the biggest thing to be like, yeah, I'll let it go.
Right.
Except for one guy.
That's it.
The guy who wanted his vice president murdered because he wouldn't do something for him. The guy who wanted to march to the Capitol with insurrectionists to stop a valid counting of votes.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy who in Arizona count every vote and in Pennsylvania stop the count. Yeah.
Cipollone agreed with the content, as did Eric Hirschman, who reviewed the draft. The committee has learned that the president did not agree with the substance as drafted and resisted giving a speech at all. Ms. Hutchinson, do you recall discussions about the president's speech on January 7th?
I do.
Let's listen, Ms. Hutchinson, to what you told us about that and about the process of crafting those remarks.
I learned from a conversation with Mark and overhearing between him and White House counsel and Eric Hirschman as well that Trump didn't necessarily think he needed to do anything more on the 7th than what he had already done on the 6th.
Which was nothing.
When he was
Nothing. They deleted that tweet.
Convinced to put out a video on the 7th. I understand that he had a lot of opinions about what the context of that announcement were to entail. I had original drafts of the speech where there were several lines that didn't make it in there about prosecuting the rioters or calling them violent. He didn't want that in there. He wanted to put in there that he wanted to potentially pardon them.
He was just saying the pardon. He didn't do a lot. No.
His mindset at the time, which was he didn't think that they did anything wrong. The people who did something wrong that day, or the person who did something wrong that day, was Mike Pence by not standing with him.
But the president's advisors urged him to give the speech.
God, do you think he goes to jail? Can he go to
Who
jail?
convinced him to do the
How can he not
video
go to
on
jail?
I'm not sure who convinced him or if it was a group of people that convinced him.
Who was in the group that you're aware of?
That I'm aware of. Mark, Ivanka, Jared Kushner, Eric Hirschman, Pat Cipollone, Pat Philbin.
Eric Hirschman's testifying.
Those
He
are
could
people that
testify to
I'm
that.
aware of.
Do you know why that group of people thought it was necessary for him to release a statement?
I believe Kayleigh McEnany as well. From what I understood at the time, and from what the reports were coming in, there was a large concern of the 25th Amendment potentially being invoked.
That's why he did it.
There were concerns about what would happen in the Senate.
Yeah, so they didn't get the 25th invoked.
The 25th was invoked. So the primary reason that I had heard, other than, we did not do enough on the 6th, we need to get a stronger message out there and condemn this, otherwise this will be your legacy. The secondary reason to that was, think about what might happen in the final 15 days of your presidency if we don't do this. There's already talks about invoking the 25th Amendment. You need this as cover.
The president ultimately delivered the remarks. Unlike many of his other speeches, he did not ad-lib much. He recited them without significant alteration, except one. Even then, on January 7th, 2021, the day after the attack on the U.S. Capitol, the president still could not bring himself to say, quote, "But this election is now over." One other point about the speech, Ms. Hutchinson. Did you hear that Mr. Trump at one point wanted to add language about pardoning those who took part in the January 6th riot?
I did hear that, and I understand that Mr. Meadows was encouraging that language as well.
Thank you, and here's what you told us previously about that.
You said he was instructed not to include it. Who was instructing him not to include language about the pardon in that January 7th?
I understood from White House counsel's office coming into our office that morning that they didn't think that it was a good idea to include that in the speech.
That being Pat Cipollone?
That's correct. And Eric Hirschman.
Ms. Hutchinson, did Rudy Giuliani ever suggest that he was interested in receiving a presidential pardon related to January 6th?
He did.
Ms. Hutchinson, did White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows?
I want to just say Giuliani came out with a tweet that said, she wasn't in the room when I asked for a pardon.
I saw that.
And then he had to delete it.
She wasn't even there when I asked for a pardon. How would she know?
How would she know?
My God.
I even asked for one when she was there. I mean, oh my God. Oi, oi, oi. And then he had to fucking delete it. That's fucking amazing. What a fucking clown card this is.
Did you see the backslap? Did you see the video where he claims he was assaulted?
Yeah, he gets touched in the back.
That guy got arrested.
Yeah.
He got arrested, but they downgraded the charges. They did let him go, the guy that got arrested, and then they reduced the charges. They shouldn't have charged him with anything. He touches him like friendly.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you? Like, my favorite quote from that. I think it's the most fucking amazing thing is Giuliani says that he was struck so hard on the back that the woman standing next to him almost fell from the reverberation of the blow.
It sounds like something you would read about, like Paul Bunyan chopping down trees.
Right. That, like, can you imagine, Cecil? Can you imagine, like, have you ever watched? We've watched a lot of MMA together.
Yeah.
We've seen some people get hit real hard.
Real fucking hard.
Like, it's not like somebody ever got hit and Herb Dean went flying.
Yeah, or like
right?
the refs are like in the audience, Dana White gets knocked out.
Dude, somebody punches somebody so hard there's a shockwave that knocks the audience out in the entire arena.
Amazing.
Joe Rogan is like, hair.
Yeah, amazing. What an idiot. What an idiot. And it is 100% a back tap. Get the fuck out of here.
It's a friendly.
It's malicious use of the law to attack somebody who said something mean to you.
When I make a joke, my wife hits me harder than that. She's like, bit. Like, she just like gets excited and she hits me harder than he was hit.
Sure. Yeah.
Those ever indicate that he was interested in receiving a presidential pardon related to January 6th?
Mr. Meadows did seek that pardon. Yes, ma'am.
Didn't get one.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Mr. Chairman, I yield
Bet he
back.
wishes he got one.
That brings me to a different topic.
This is fucking
While our
great.
committee has seen many witnesses.
So this part here is about witness tampering, which I'm leaving in, but the very end of this is fucking money.
Including many Republicans, testify fully and forthrightly. This has not been true of every witness. And we have received evidence of one particular practice that raises significant concern. Our committee commonly asks witnesses connected to Mr. Trump's administration or campaign whether they've been contacted by any of their former colleagues or anyone else who attempted to influence or impact their testimony. Without identifying any of the individuals involved, let me show you a couple of samples of answers we received to this question. First, here's how one witness described phone calls from people interested in that witness's testimony. Quote, what they said to me is as long as I continue to be a team player, they know I'm on the right team. I'm doing the right thing. I'm protecting who I need to protect. You know I'll continue to stay in good graces in Trump world.
Trump world.
And they have reminded me a couple of times
it's
that
not
Trump
reality.
does read transcripts. And just keep
No,
that
he
in
doesn't.
mind
No, he
as I
doesn't.
proceed
Someone
through my
reads them and
interviews
tells
with
him the
committee.
highlights.
No, he's literally reading highlights.
Here's
magazine.
another sample in a different context. This is a call received by one of our witnesses. Quote, a person let me know you have your deposition tomorrow. He wants me to let you know he's thinking about you.
That sounds
He knows
so
you're
mafia.
loyal.
That sounds
and you're going
so
to do the
mafia.
right thing when you go in for your deposition.
That sounds so mafia.
It's like from
I
Casino.
think most
about you.
Americans know that
I know you're going to do the right thing.
I've been thinking about you. Hey,
you're on my
forget
mind.
about it, huh? Hey,
know.
get this guy a plate of gabagool, huh?
to influence witnesses to testify untruthfully presents very serious concerns. We will be discussing these issues as a committee, carefully considering our next
Fucking
steps.
charge people,
I want
man.
to speak directly to that.
This is fucking outstanding, and this has such fucking like badass energy to it. It's so good.
The handful of witnesses who have been outliers in our investigation, the small number who have defied us outright, those whose memories have failed them again and again on the most important details, and to those who fear Donald Trump and his enablers. Because of this courageous woman and others like her, your attempt to hide the truth from the American people will fail. And to that group of witnesses, if you've heard this testimony today and suddenly you remember things you couldn't previously recall, or there are some details you'd like to clarify, or you discovered some courage you had hidden away somewhere, our doors remain open.
Oh yeah!
It sounds like you grew up in a family with a bunch of boys.
Yeah.
So it's like when something gets broken, it's like someone's gonna tell me who broke it.
Yes.
You know,
right.
that's what it sounds
Yeah,
like. It sounds
right.
like a dad being like, Someone will tell me who broke this.
I know that I am going to find out.
I will find out who broke it.
What happened?
Yeah.
That's what I know.
Yeah.
Is that I will find out what happened
if you
from one of you.
Your courage. Holy shit. Where's the mic? Drop that shit as soon as you're done. Outstanding.
That is so good.
I loved how it ended. I got to say, seriously though, it's like the most disturbing shit was that fucking Flynn thing. I think that's the most disturbing thing I've heard in this testimony so far. You know, the fact that he wanted to go up there and do this stuff is a little shocking. It's because they really haven't been talking a lot about this yet.
Yeah.
And so it is a little shocking, admittedly. But the Flynn thing, that's the thing that I'm just like, I can't believe that shit. I can't believe it.
I really think that a whole bunch of people, Cecil, need to go to fucking prison.
Yeah, I agree.
They need to go to fucking
I think they need to go
prison.
to jail, man. I think they need to go to jail. Absolutely. Yeah.
Man.
Well, it's 10:17, so it's time to wrap it up for tonight. Tomorrow, come back.
Guys,
tomorrow
we're going to be streaming and raising money.
Yeah, tomorrow, it's an abortion access fundraiser. Save your pennies. We're going to be donating. You can. The cool thing is that the money there's going to be going to a website, and on that website you can click which podcast you want to donate for. So if you want to donate for Opening Arguments, you can click on their icon, or if you want to donate for Knowledge Fight, you click on theirs, or the Scathing Atheist, you click on theirs. We're going to be hosting. We're going to have some people on. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be just hanging out. We're going to be encouraging you to donate for the entire time. So come back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central. We start, and we're going to go till about 10:30 tomorrow. It's going to be a long stream. Come hang out with us. Come on. You came here tonight. Come back tomorrow.
There couldn't be a better cause.
For real.
This is the most necessary thing we've ever done.
It's super dire right now. We got to make sure we get some money into these organizations so they can help women. The organizations that were chosen are ones that are really going to be helping women get to places where they can get abortions.
Right.
And these are trusted, these are established organizations.
They are, and they're hyper regional. Like we selected places that I really believe will have the most impact. Like they are, right in Texas. They are right in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi,
Midwest,
Louisiana, the Midwest.
Yeah.
These are places that are, they're regional places. These are not great big national bodies where the money might get lost in administration.
Yeah.
This is like we tried hard to find organizations that we think as much of that money as possible will go to people that need it directly for abortion access care.
Yeah. Come back tomorrow and hang out with us. Bring your pennies. We're going to go, though. We got to bounce. What?
Do you want a quick palate cleanser before we go? It's quick.
What do you got?
What do you got?
What do you got, Ian?
It's in the doc. It's in the doc. Go ahead.
Do I have to open it up?
You got to open it. Yeah, it's a link to Twitter. You got to turn the sound on. It's under
You got
live
it.
stream.
That was intense testimony.
You gotta turn
That was
the
good
sound on.
testimony.
Pretty good. You got to turn this on.
All right.
Okay.
It's at the
Here
bottom.
we go. Yeah.
Okay. If you hit enter after it, you can just turn it into a link.
I know. It'll make
Do
it
you
a
know?
link. I know.
Do you know if you can do that? Got it. It's not. That's the wrong keyboard. That's why.
I did it.
What do you got?
There it is.
Oh, Jesus,
Did
it's
it.
fucked now. I know it's not going to work.
What
I guarantee
happened?
it's not going to work.
Did you break it?
No.
I bet it's not going to work.
It's fixed. It's fixed. Just take the slash out. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine.
Oh, I
This
saw
is all
this. I
part of
saw
it.
this week. This is okay. It's
Somebody, I mean,
I
made
saw
me
this.
giggle a little bit, and also somebody wanted us to watch it.
All right. I'm going to call it up.
So it's their fault.
All right. I saw this week. It's a giggle.
It's a giggle.
I haven't
It's a
seen
palate
this.
It's a
cleanser.
palate cleanser. We're
Doesn't
going to
mean
palate
it's not
cleanser.
a good,
It's
you
a
know,
giggle.
not
It's a
full
giggle.
meal.
We got it.
All right.
What does that say in what is it? Romantic music?
I don't know.
What are they sleeping on? What is that? A couch?
Are they on the couch? Yeah.
Yeah.
A jak ty w ogóle masz na imię? Nie chciałbyś zostać na śniadanie?
I think it's Polish. Pretty sure.
A gdybym to ja zajął twoje miejsce?
Nie parkuj na miejscach.
Gotcha.
Got him.
Got him.
Oh, I thought that was great.
Got him.
It's all right.
Oh, it's so good.
You don't really see it coming. And it's
Oh, it's
All
good.
right, guys. We got to go. We got more show to do. So we got to bounce. So long, everybody. Catch you tomorrow.
All right, guys. See you tomorrow. That was good palate cleanser.
Good. It was a delicious palate. It was like a sorbet at the end of the meal. All right, let's go.
Right, like lemon or res. Okay.
Okay, we got to go.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.